All right, welcome to the Art Agents. We have a special guest today, and it is Mr. Jeff Watts. What an inspiration! What an artist! What a draftsman! What a great man! What an incredible guest to have on today. And Jeff, I forgot to say before we came on that we have a greeting, and I have one from Ireland, and the Virginians will do their greeting now. Virginians, greet away.
Howdy.
Nice.
And in Ireland we say "Céad Míle Fáilte," which means 100,000 welcomes. Jeff, is there something in San Diego? Is there a San Diego welcome?
Oh man, geez, nothing that comes to mind that's that quirk. I mean, like we definitely have our quirkiness as far as like slang, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's just basically how you doing. I mean, what's going on? How you chilling? Any of the kind of casual way of saying, like,
Yeah.
what's up? You know,
How are you chilling, Jeff?
I'm doing good, doing really good. Yeah.
I like that one. Of the
Yeah.
three
I'm just
options,
chilling out. I'm relaxing. I'm in the Southern California vibe. It's 80 degrees. It's
yeah,
almost 75 degrees at the beach today.
Holy
is it?
cow.
I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's warm.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I don't mind that temperature. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got yeah, I like 25 in Celsius, which is I think it's about that. I like that. That's fine.
Yeah.
And Jeff,
We're having some good weather. Yep.
yeah, here is us here. Can you see the screen? Is the
Yes, I
screen
can.
on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've got a bunch
Yes.
of, I mean, I've got a little mosaic of a bunch of stuff going on there. It looks like,
yeah.
you know,
Jeff, we go to the same tailor, do we not?
do we go to the same tailor?
Y'all are wearing the
I'm pretty
same clothes in
casual.
that
I mean, I'm a
photo.
pretty casual guy. I don't dress up often. It's mostly blue jeans and t-shirts for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that. It wasn't until I got home and looked at that photo I went,
Oh, that one that we took a while back. Yeah, that was
yeah,
funny. That was a
how
funny
we
one. That's all
dressed.
backlit and kind of halation light and kind of
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I'm as white in the hair there as my granddad
I know.
with that
I
with
started
that
like,
light.
I just, man, it's just, it happens quick.
It happens
I've
quick.
got it a
Yeah.
little bit more dyed right now, which is like, I don't like it being totally white. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little much, but
Yeah.
it does make you look distinguished. That's for sure.
You know what, Jeff? I first thought, oh no, not this now. It's not a it's this another thing. I'm loving it. I was in Warsaw. I was in Warsaw in Poland. And I went to the old town. I know you love to travel too. You could talk about that.
Yeah.
And have you been to Warsaw?
I have not. No, no.
Because I know you went to Russia
Yeah,
with Stan.
I took quite a long trip with Stan, about a month.
It was so funny to see those photos, to see
Oh
you in the
yeah,
back of the
we were in
haystack.
Ukraine, and yeah, it was fun. I mean, yeah, he was like my little brother in a way. I mean, he was started when he was just a kid with me, probably
Yeah.
15, maybe 16 years old.
Yeah. He had such a look of a kid, even though he was like, he's grown up. He must have been in his 20s, but he just had that childlike, and still has it today, that
Yeah,
childlike
yeah,
quality.
he's always looked young for sure. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
always got that young look. But man, yeah, he's done great work. I mean, he's fun to watch. He's very tenacious. He's got such a beat on that generation.
Yeah. Oh, he really has. You know, when I went to see you, I went to see Stan just after it. I basically got in a taxi and went to see him for the first time as well. He's such a lovable fellow, you know. He's such a really nice guy.
Mhm.
And they
Yeah, he's very
say, you
personable.
know, yeah, and they say you shouldn't meet your heroes. And that is, we could talk about that. I've definitely met some when I went, get me out of this room,
Yeah,
even though I'd wanted to see them all my life. But that wasn't the case with you and Stan. So that was a really nice experience. The San Diego experience for me will be remembered forever as a wonderful experience. It was
nice.
fantastic.
Good to hear. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a small world. Everybody knows everybody and what everybody's up to and doing. I mean, if you're been in the industry for a while or teaching, painting, fine art, illustration, doesn't matter. Everybody knows everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, Jeff, because I had friends in San Diego I didn't even know lived there, and I could have been looking them all up. Did not know San Diego. San Diego for me was a revelation. There was California, and the world ended there, usually for me, when I went to Los Angeles. Went down to San Diego Old Town, and was just knocked out by it. Have you been there, Jeff?
Oh yeah, I used to teach painting classes there. I mean, I was born and raised in San Diego, so for me, I mean, I've seen it all grow up and change and become
Yeah.
it's pretty big city now, but it still has a small town feel.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like LA, that's for sure, and I'm thankful for that.
sure.
You
For
know,
sure. Yeah, me too. I think that my time of visiting Los Angeles Central are kind of over, because it's not a pleasant experience. It really is the boulevard of broken dreams. You go down there and it's just people, I could have been somebody, one after the other.
Yeah,
I
it has
sat in
an
a
interesting, it
restaurant.
has an interesting vibe for sure. I spent a lot of time there and it was never really felt like home to me. I mean, there's a lot of industry there. There's a lot of movement, a lot of activity, a lot of, if you're in your early 20s, sometimes it's kind of fun, but
Yeah,
it's a hard place to live. It's a hard place to survive. I mean, it's not as bad as like, well, I don't know, maybe New York's probably a little more intense, but it's an
yeah.
expensive city.
Oh boy.
You know, but not probably
Oh
not as
boy.
bad as New York, but it's probably coming up close. San Diego is pretty expensive now too. So, it's
Yeah, I'd
kind of,
imagine.
yeah.
It's such a nice place to live. I had the experience of stepping off a train like an old cowboy and walking across the tracks and not having to go through a station was just amazing for me. I went, I'm in the street. I have never seen such a thing. It was so great. And just dragged that bag down to the Days Inn, and I was happy. It was just a marvelous experience. When I was in Los Angeles, I thought I'll get a hotel room, and like I should be so long in the tooth I shouldn't be tricked, but they showed the facade of it and it looked great to me. And I thought, oh, that looks good. What's the price? Like $200 a night. I thought, okay, because for $200 a night here on the Gold Coast, you get the ocean view. You get air
Yeah, not
conditioning.
here.
You know, when I walked into that dump, I couldn't. I said this on the cockroaches. I could
Oh,
not believe how little $200 got you for
oh
a night.
yeah,
It
yeah. You're looking
was
at probably close to $800 a night if you want some ocean view.
if I wanted that.
700. I mean, you can get Airbnbs that are quite. I think that's the way to go, really, because yeah, I mean,
Airbnb forever
it's
now.
the hotels are ridiculous and they're not very,
Uh,
my opinion, very good. I mean, there's really beautiful places up in Laguna and just north of us that between LA and San Diego, there's some really beautiful coastal and there's some beautiful stuff in San Diego,
yeah,
but yeah, it's expensive for sure. I mean, it definitely will get your attention.
yeah. San Diego was great. I loved it. Okay, well, Jeff, let's get into this thing now. Like I say, I'm going to take this course. I took courses with Jeff before, drawing courses, unbelievable, and every instructor was on fire. And it's a funny thing, Jeff. I was talking to Steve Houston about name dropping already.
Uh-huh.
Talking to Steve Houston about some people, like, I think you've got an incredibly long fuse where most people burn out. I've seen burnout happen in people in their 30s, but usually in their 40s and then 50s, everyone's grumping about get me out of here in advertising anyway. And then by their 60s, they're just relieved that it's all over and behind them. And I was never like that. I always had this long fuse like you, where I go, I love every day of drawing,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And you've got that incredibly long fuse too. And like I say, Steve says some people peak at 60. And I'd never heard that before. And I feel that I'm peaking way after that time you're supposed to be burnt out. Because Frank Frazetta said that, how do they expect me to paint like I did in my 20s? And he
Mhm.
was in his 50s then. And I thought, Frank, you could be peaking in your 60s. I wonder
Yeah.
why he had that mindset.
Yeah, and
Because he really,
he doesn't seem like the one that would either because he was pretty virulent. I mean, he had a very physical guy, very strong. I
yeah,
don't know how well he actually took care of himself. I mean, he smoked, he did this, he did that. So it's
yeah,
hard to say. I think it was just kind of a physical specimen more than anything. He just had that natural genetic body type that was really lean and very muscly. But I think, yeah, no, my dad is a great example. He's in his 80s and he comes and teaches for us, and he's got more energy
yeah,
than any 20-year-old in the class for sure, 10 times over.
yeah. And do you think that energy comes from the passion of the art? Or do you think it's just that energetic core of
I
his
think
being?
again, life. I don't know, it whittles away at you, but I mean, art is one of those things that keeps you young at heart. And I think, especially like in my case, I teach a lot of 20 somethings and that age that's kind of early mid 20s, and so I'm always around that energy. I'm always I don't have biological kids of my own, so a lot of the kids become my I mean a lot of them I mentor into being teachers, and they become best friends, and they become part of my fabric of my inner circle of people that I hang with. So I think that keeps me really young at heart, just because I'm always around that kind of energy, and that's kept me really youthful. I mean, yeah, it's hard to keep shepherding people through and keep like taking them from ground zero to professional is quite a journey, and it never gets easy, and it's
Yeah.
sobering for everybody. But I think yeah, I don't know what keeps me so. I mean, I went through a bit of a burnout last couple of years. It was pretty
Oh,
brutal.
really?
Oh yeah, but it was a lot of life stuff going on, a lot of personal stuff going on that was really causing a lot of that. But at the same time, I still produced through it. I still taught through it. And I think being a consummate professional, you just don't allow those things to, you don't have a luxury for burnout. Really. I don't understand that, I'm burnout. Well, get over it. It's just like, yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? You work through,
Yeah,
you work through it every time. I've worked
yeah,
through so many different weird
yeah,
times, and it's always been, challenging, but good. The art is like a glue. It's also, and that's why I
yeah,
try to tell students, you got to be at such a high level so that when life throws you those curveballs and you come
yeah,
down, you're at a level where most people wouldn't notice that. You'll notice it. Your best painter friends and stuff will notice it, but your clients won't. This won't. You got to, you're going to default to your training in adverse situations, and if that training's not really, really intuitive and high, you're going to be in trouble. You know.
yeah. That's an interesting point, Jeff, because I remember a really wealthy kid when I was working at Pinewood Studios. Now I was on the bones of my ass. I was crawling through Pinewood. Pinewood Studios actually has a pine wood around it. I was crawling through those woods every day, going through the gate, and the guy would say to me, "Not the car today, sir." I says, "I parked it in the village." My ass. I'd forged tickets on the train to get crawl through the woods and turn up at the studios as if I was part of the rich culture. And
Yeah.
I was sitting in there and I would paint concept art. And there was this really nice kid would come in. He was called Rupert or something. He was a really lovely kid. But I was a kid. So he was the same age as me. And I said, and Rupert would say to me, would one like a cup of tea, sir? And I'd say, yeah, that'd be nice, Rupert. Thanks very much. And he would sit and watch me paint. And I said to the agent there was a publicity agent, all kinds of people were there. I was in James Bond's studio. You know where James Bond comes in? He talks to Moneypenny. That was
Uh-huh.
my studio. I would
Nice.
sit there. Oh, that's amazing when I see it on TV. Sometimes it's a stage, but sometimes they have the real studio because Peter Snell owned it, who I was working for. But anyway, I'm sitting there with Rupert, and I said when Rupert left, I says, Rupert's a really lovely guy to the casting agent. I says, why is he here? And he said, he wants to learn from you. I says, oh, he's going to be an artist. He says, no, he's here to learn how to be a man.
Mm,
And I went, what are you talking about? He had no compulsion to do anything because he was rich. And so
mm,
his life was already assured. He didn't have to struggle. There was no struggle at all. And that was interesting when you said, well, what are you going to do? You got to bull through it. He doesn't have to do that.
yeah.
So my superpower was poverty. It was the superpower. What else am I going to do? You know? So I think,
I
and
think
James Cagney said that.
burn the bridges,
Yeah,
burn the bridges so you don't have
yeah,
any, I mean, I always
that's a
tell
good
people
idea.
that, if you have something to fall back on, you probably will. But I mean, you want to be careful to give that advice to everybody because some people really do need something to fall back on,
Yeah, that one, yeah. That's the thing about
but
it being a teacher.
I do
Everything's a
think, yeah,
minefield.
humble beginnings. I mean, my parents are both really hardworking, middle Midwest, kind of salt of the earth, kind of uh, people, and so I think growing up with a dad that was a freelancer and watching him go through feast and famine and tons of work, no work, lots of money, no money, I mean, it was just sobering,
Yeah.
it's probably why I'm so entrepreneurial. I don't think the last time I worked really for somebody I was 16 years old, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
So I've been
Yeah.
either freelance or entrepreneurial my whole life. So it's always been,
Yeah.
build it and believe in it and believe in yourself and then bring it to fruition, however long that takes, however hard that is, you just kind of push through everything.
Yeah. Well, that's the Holy Grail, isn't it? The Holy Grail. And we're both living it now. So the dream is
Yeah.
achieved. That's what this podcast is about. The dream is achievable, but you got to work hard at it, right? You got to put the miles in. The mileage is the most important thing. And I think that's what's so wonderful about your art school is the mileage is such a foundation of what will get you there. Because I was looking at really incredible stuff the other day about how the brain works. And the brain, the long-term memory and the short-term memory are different parts of the brain than the motor memory. And so this alone is something that we have to hone all the time. They did an experiment on a kid that lost his hippocampus. He didn't lose it. The doctor cut it out because they were just experimenting on this poor kid because he was having convulsions.
Mhm.
And he stopped convulsing, but his memory was 15 minutes long. It's a true story, by the way.
Mm,
And so they, because it had never been done before, they gave him a test to draw inside a concentric star. And so he did this in a mirror. You can imagine how hard that is to try and get that star in there. He'd only 15 minutes to do it because his memory was 15 minutes long. And he did it, and by the end of the 15 minutes, he had done the star perfectly, but he'd forgotten the entire test. It was
Hmm.
totally forgotten. They asked him to do it again, and he did it right away. And so they worked out then, this was the 50s, they worked out then that the hippocampus, the short term and the long term memory, have nothing to do with motor function. That's
Hmm.
in the cerebellum. And so
Fascinating.
that's, isn't that fascinating? So that's why I always hark on it. It's that mileage. It's that doing it over and over. Because that kid can draw a star anytime he wants now inside a concentric set of stars. And he can keep doing that with the donkey or whatever he's got 50. He can only do short sketch, Jeff. If he comes to your class, it's only short sketch. He can't do anything else.
Only quick sketch classes, yes.
He's got 15 minutes to
Oh
draw a
wow.
donkey.
It's funny because I
Um,
think the more I work on more esoteric aspects of learning, whether it's I'm very spiritual, so I'm always studying all kinds of stuff outside of art to bring more of that into the art, to make it more soulful, to make it more, not
yeah,
just accurate. Accuracy obviously is extremely important. You can always find a way to make a living as a great executor,
yeah,
but if you want to be a visionary, you want to produce something that's really meaningful in many different ways. I mean, meaning is different for everybody, but yeah, there's a complex system. I mean, I've had plastic surgeons in training with us. I've had, some really elite level intellectuals that are humbled incredibly by the range
yeah,
of knowledge you have to be um, professional in the art. I mean, you're really working at five or six different professions that work concurrently with each other. Perspective like an architect, and muscle knowledge like a surgeon, and I mean, you just go on and on. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
It'd be
It's amazing you should say that, Jeff.
fascinating. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, Rachel. Go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead,
just
Rachel.
butt in a little bit, but yeah, it'd be fascinating if they could like somehow like do a brain scan of you, Jeff, when you're doing your painting and talking the way
I'd
you
like
do.
to see that.
Because I bet the whole thing is just moving around and
I
it's
know.
very
I always joke
controllable.
about that. I'm a right left brainer, which is really handy, which means I can work pretty good on both hemispheres, and it allows me to do business. It allows me to be interested in other things other than just visual art. But my dad's very much that way, and not everybody is. It functions really well between the two hemispheres. So you get the artists that are hyper eccentric and can't look you in the eye and can't communicate and have zero social skills, and they're brilliant, but they lacking a whole section of situational awareness, emotional intelligence, things of that sort. So I think I have such a unique wiring. I've always had that, and it's very perplexing to me because I was talking recently. I went and did ayahuasca for the first time, and
What's that, Jeff?
um,
How was that?
it was amazing. Yeah, it was one of the
I'm I'm I
prob-
missed it, Jeff. What
he
is it?
does. He
Sorry,
doesn't
I missed
know.
it.
well, ayahuasca is actually a plant medicine, from the Amazon basin. It's been around
Oh,
for
right, I don't know it.
maybe
That's I'm
three
beginning.
thousand maybe 3,000 years. They've been using it.
You went to the
Yeah.
Amazon?
No, I went to
O-
Ecuador,
Okay. Okay.
up in the Andes. Yeah. But it
Okay.
was
That's awesome.
but what the thing that it is it's a hallucinogenic, right? So it's going to affect people. I was always concerned about it because I'm so hyper. I'm not even hyper visual. The funny thing is I don't see visual things in my mind's eye at all. So for
Get out of
me,
here, Jeff.
no, I don't have I can't visualize very well in my mind's eye. And so how I do what I do, I'm not quite exactly sure how it all links
Yeah.
together. It's more by feeling than it is by thinking and by seeing. So a lot of times I talk a lot about when I teach a lot from this place of energetics, more like masculine, feminine energy. Um,
Yeah.
the feminine being hyper intuitive, the masculine being hyper analytical. So you're basically doing a dance between thinking, feeling, thinking, feeling. And if you do either one of those too much, it's pretty disastrous. So you've got to kind of do this dance with these different polarities of energy. And when you work with a medicine like ayahuasca, which is hyper hallucinogenic, I mean, it's very visual. It can be. I didn't see hardly anything. Which I'm
Okay.
very one of the few people that it just didn't work on me the way it does with most people. And I kind of suspected that that would be the case, but they were very
Hmm.
perplexed by, the way my system works with visual, because you'd think I would have these insane visuals
Yeah.
with
Or
people
like your
on other planets and
dreams.
other
Like
realms communicating with other things. I mean, there's
yeah.
people that are having this incredible experience. It's like almost like lucid dreaming, lucid type experience, and I didn't have hardly any of that at all. And I did like 8 ceremonies or something.
I am shocked. I am so shocked. My shoes just flew off. There's a name for that, Jeff. I think it's called Fantasia or something. Do you know what the name of that is where you can't
I don't,
visualize?
it's funny because it's always perplexed me the way I learn. Like I've never studied color. I'm very intuitive with color. I feel color more than I think color. And I talk a lot about feeling your way into a painting or through a painting, especially when you get into the more like Nikolai Fechin, Mancini, you get into the more esoterically abstract representationalists versus like a
Yeah,
Sargent or even a Bouguereau where it's very analytical. It's very excellently executed at a high level of proficiency,
yeah,
but it's not magical at all to me.
yeah.
The magic is more the Fetchins, the
The
Cornwells, the
abstract, yeah.
broken color, the layering, complex layering. But again, that's more of a feeling aspect to execution. But you have to be really good with the technical as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange to me. So it's fun when I talk to different artists. It's always interesting. Or when I'm teaching people, it brings a different angle of teaching into it. It's not just teaching, technique. It's not just teaching. You have to teach obviously the logical concepts of perspective and anatomy and insertions and origins and all that kind of stuff. But then it becomes okay. Now how do we push through that and create that magic that the Frazetta has, that Fetching has? That gets into more that realm of what I'm talking about, where you start going into more esoteric aspects of learning, or that at least that's been where it's led me, because you can only
Yeah,
get
me too.
you only can get so technically proficient, and then it's like, what's the point? I mean, we're just
Yeah.
going for David Blaine type magic tricks or something. I mean, at some point it's more like let's see what we can how we can bring this into a vision or a way of communicating that's maybe more abstract a little bit, but also more connected to soul versus
Yeah.
mind.
So with
Well, it's
the
very unusual. Sorry, Rachel, go ahead. And
uh,
Rachel, I'm a bit worried about you knowing that drug. I didn't know that drug. Rachel's got a stash.
I
You
think
can call it. I think
hallucinogens
some
are
people will call it a drug, but it's really more of a
yeah.
medicine.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, it's
Rachel, what do
not.
you call it?
Well,
What's that?
it's a like I mean, there's plants for
I'm sorry, it's
everything. It's just we have this word called drug for things that we don't agree with. But I mean, coffee's a drug.
yeah.
Ibuprofen is a drug.
I mean,
It's like
caffeine's a
it's just
drug. I mean,
such a
yeah,
broad thing.
yeah, everyone has, and it's funny because sometimes people say, "Oh, did you bring up ayahuasca?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." People are gonna get bent out of shape about all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
but they're
Oh,
using
don't
it.
we know
I
it?
mean, they're exploring it for post traumatic stress with veterans. They're going to be
Yeah.
Yeah.
using it with, I mean, and mostly it's just the pharmaceutical companies aren't a big fan of anything that'll help you out without being able to make money at it. So
Yeah, if people could
Yeah.
grow that easily and
yeah, I mean, but it's if you do it properly, it's done shamanically that's been passed down for generations
yeah.
through families that have been had shamans in their family line for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that
Amazing.
one's not a party drug. People don't do it for
No,
fun. Like
it's
it's not a
really used
fun
for
experience from what I've
yeah
heard.
for spiritual awakening, for raising consciousness. It's not one that you would go take at a party and hang out.
Yeah.
It's very purgatory. So you purge a lot. You purge. You
Yeah.
can throw up. You can this. It's a very kind of brings up a lot of trauma that's been stored in the body. It's a very intelligent plant. If you can think of it that way, it's almost like an intelligence that's been around since the beginning of time, and it works well with the human system because it's organic. It's not synthetic and man-made.
Yeah, and this feeling that like everyone always has this feeling like we need to take care of the planet a little bit better. And
Yeah.
No,
like
it's
You
very. I
preach
mean,
it.
I was with 30 different people from all over the world. We had people from, I don't know, Germany, South Africa, United States, Canada. I mean, everybody was there representing. I mean, it was amazing, and it
that's
was all different
awesome.
ages. It was from 70 years old to probably 21.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
that's on my bucket list. I won't get there anytime soon. I'm not in a rush, but to do in a place like that too, that's awesome. I
Oh,
did not expect the conversation to go
it was.
there.
I would say it's top five in my life.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I'd put it
awesome.
up in the top five. But it
Holy,
was also, it was very, yeah, I know it was very healing. But it's like, you get to a certain point in your art where you're saying, okay, what's going to allow me to get to a higher level of execution? And again, is it just going to sit and do more quick sketch and draw more this that, or is it going to be pushing the envelope of your own boundaries of how you sabotage yourself, or childhood trauma, or just stuff that you haven't dealt with, that really worthiness issues. I mean, you can go down a laundry list of things that would prevent you from being the best artist you could be, that has nothing to do with technical skill.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like ego kind of gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So things that
Yeah,
kind of
Rachel,
delete that.
and yeah, I think when you're teaching, like when I teach, you're really like a psychoanalyst. I mean, you're really getting to know the person on an extremely deep level. You need to understand what's hindering them from either learning or keeping them back from executing at the highest level they can. And a lot of times it's all the negative self-talk that's been instilled in them from their family and their parents not wanting them to be an artist, and their friends and
oh
every
yeah,
ridicule they put up with in school, and all this stuff, and then they're already wired uniquely, because usually they're on the spectrum some way, shape, or form.
yeah,
So it's they're beautiful souls. Artists are just magical people, but seldom understand themselves, often misunderstood by other people. And so if you're going to go out in the world and go up against Disney, or the CEOs and all the executives that want to basically utilize your skills to make them tons of money but not pay you much, is it's an unfair battle. You've got the business people battling the beautiful souls. Not that every business person's bad, but it's just, what I saw is that artists championing themselves with their skills, number one, because otherwise you're not even going to be in the game, period. But once you
yeah,
have those skills, then how do you show up in the world and command respect of a level of, the whole world is created by visual people. We create everything that's worth having or worth enjoying, whether it's
yeah.
cars you drive, the clothes you wear, the houses you live in, the video games your kids play, the movies you go watch, the theme parks you go travel to. I mean, you just name it. It's all being done by artists. And how could you not make a great living if you're good at it?
Yeah, there's Jeff describing the podcast right there. Guys, before we go any further, Jeff, I want to apologize because I'm in Australia. So if it ever sounds like I'm talking over the top of you, I'm hearing you just a few seconds late. And then I talk and you go, that Patrick Jones is a rude man. He's always talking on top of me. But it's just that we got to get into that. I have to get into that rhythm where I speak just after you. You get the idea of it. So if it ever sounds like that, that's not what's happening. But I wanted to say to Rachel and Melody, are you recording this?
Yes.
Thank God.
I mean, these things are getting more out in the open. Like you can, like in certain states, it's getting legalized now, and I think people
for
are
medical reasons.
yeah, people are becoming more aware of it, and it's a serious thing that you take seriously. I don't know. I'm not worried about that.
Oh, you mean, are you about talking about ayahuasca and stuff like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I,
not
I'm
worried about
always
it.
I'm always like an open book, and people can judge me or whatever they want. I don't care. I mean, it's funny. I don't think I've ever even read one comment on one of my YouTubes or anything ever. I've never read one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
No
That's
interest.
a good way to be, Jeff, because see, once you start reading them, and you know what, I thought it was a personal, I had one of the best bits of advice I ever had was from because when I started teaching, I didn't have a teaching qualification. And so when I started teaching, you'd get mostly like you say, the beautiful souls, but you'd always get one rotten apple at the back of the class for some reason. And they really got to me. And I said, this kid is just poison. I don't know. And the teacher says to me, take the risk, take the personal out of it. And the second I did, I went, this is easy. It's not me that's got the problem, it's the kid. So I got to help him. This poor kid, he can't be let out in public. He's just unsociable. So when I first thought that, I went, that's me for life. And then I went on the Instagram and, I was doing some stuff with Stan and we did a little promo thing. And at the end of it, everyone's really lovely. And then you get to the bottom comments and everyone's horrible. And then I worked out that it's always the bottom comments. And so they sit there, these guys, these horrors,
Yeah.
waiting for the all good stuff to finish, and then in they go. And I've
Yeah.
noticed it's
I mean,
always
to
at the
me, it's
bottom.
like, I'm going to speak my piece. I know who I am. I know how good I am. I know what I've done. I know how I've trained. And so for me, there's no point in getting into banter with anybody
No point.
that's not respectful, or just is wanting to sit and throw darts, from behind, like, again, in the real world, those people would be knocked out. I mean, they wouldn't
Yeah,
go up to me
yeah,
in person and say that. And it's kind of like, I think Mike Tyson's like talks about that. It's like, just everybody
yeah,
hides behind this facade of not
Yeah.
having to actually have any ramifications for your actions.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really don't care. So for me, it's funny. Yeah, I've shot, how many YouTubes, how many this, how many that,
Yeah.
and I never, the comments are hilarious because I don't even know what people are saying or care. But
Yeah.
I mean,
That's fun.
I think most of the time, if you're doing good work and you're putting good work out there,
Yeah.
people are gonna enjoy it.
Well, all we've had
Yeah.
so far, like we have a live chat up. We got a lot of positive
Oh, go ahead.
comments. Like people who are. Do you want to read some of them?
Yeah, so I'm touching it like a touchscreen. Well, we have a question. So Chuck is actually one of Patrick's students and our peers.
Hey, Chuck.
He said, I started drawing during COVID. How did the pandemic change art education? How did it change interest in art?
Great
Directed
question.
to, Jeff.
I mean,
Jeff?
I was kind of prepared because I think I started my online school 15 years ago, and that was pre any school really. I mean, I don't think there was even another one out there at the time, and it wasn't. I'm not like, hey, look at me. It was just I was always ahead of the curve with that stuff, and I knew where things were going, but I also knew when the pandemic hit, it to me it was we were already fully prepared for it because we already had a streaming program going, we already had online going. People were going to be stuck in their houses. They were going to want to, oh, that's that school I always wanted to try, but never had the time to do it, and now I have it. So we actually did really, really, really well during the pandemic, way better than we did outside of it.
Yeah.
But
That's
that
funny.
I was heavily
That's satellite, Jeff. Sorry. Yeah, I was talking to Stan the same way. I went to see Stan when I saw you, and we were just sitting in his little studio underneath the building. And I asked him how he went with the pandemic, and he says it was we weren't gloating or anything, but he says it was never better. And I had the same experience as well. And there's the strength of being your own person, the strength of having your own agency is the fact that you're not really beholden to the world events like other people because you have really this strength already. You have this thing that you've built that you own. No one's coming in to say, Jeff, pack your bags, you're out because you own it. It's your thing. And I did okay. The pandemic was actually that's a question for you, Jeff. For me, after the pandemic, my whole idea of what's happening next changed quite a bit, where I stopped teaching in universities. I just stopped doing it because I found it a much, even though I missed the students, that's what I really miss more than anything. But I didn't miss the admin. I didn't miss the putting your pay in. I always felt that was kind of it felt like a slavery thing to do. I have to put my pay in. In old money, they used to just pay you, but having to put it in made me feel a little bit servile. And it stuck with me. I don't know, it's just my problem, but it really stuck in my craw. I said, I have to put my pay in. So that stopped me doing that and just become my own entity. Did you find that after the pandemic, you were stronger? Did you feel weaker? What did you feel after it? How did it change the way your whole world operates?
I mean, I think for me, I'm very resilient, but I'm being a born and bred entrepreneur. You better be able to read the tea leaves because, man, if you don't, you're just going
Yeah.
to get absolutely destroyed. So, whether it's seeing the trends way before other people or really looking at it, could be anything, it could be real estate, it could be stocks, it could be crypto, it could be whatever. I mean, you've got to be able to look and say, this is where the ball's going, this is where it's heading, this is where it's going to end up, and basically then make the move years or even decades before other people sometimes. And that's something that not everybody possesses that ability to do that. Most good entrepreneurs do. I mean, they just have like a sixth sense or an intuition about things. And I remember telling my wife 5 years ago, it's going to be a pandemic. I said,
Yeah.
yeah, I said, 5 years before it happened, probably 6 years before it happened. I'm like, I mean, it's going to be something like that. And I started preparing, but I was preparing so far ahead of it that and most people would be like, oh, the sky's falling, or they're just like, oh, you're just paranoid, or you're this or you're that, and they can say whatever they want, I mean, I don't care. But for me, it was more, I'm already looking for the next thing that's going to happen. I'm already trying to figure out where the ball's going. Right when that one hit, I'm looking at the one that's coming after that. Okay, you guys are going to inflate everything, and now they're going to be printing all this money, and then we're going to get into inflation, and then we're going to have this issue, and then that's going to cause this to happen, and you're just basically running out hypotheticals and basically estimating what's going to happen. And it's pretty much laying out almost exactly like I thought it would. But you have to like have a really strong sense of grounding, of who you are, how you operate, and then you have to be extremely resilient, and just you also have to be lean and keep yourself not overly exposed to things that can collapse your business or collapse what you're doing. I mean, threading the needle with my business for 35 years now. I mean, keep any business open for 35 years. I don't care if it's a hamburger, place or whatever. I mean, it's hard to
Yeah.
keep business going for 35 years. I've ridden, 2000, the Y2K, 2010, or 2001 when, the Twin Tower, the whole, I mean, it's just been one after another.
Yeah.
2008 was absolutely ridiculous in the United States, with the financial debacle that happened there. So I think, it's always been tenacity, patience, perseverance, persistence, being tenacious, hardworking, harder working than most other people, always looking, never sitting on your laurels and saying, oh, I've made it, everything's good, I can just skate through stuff now. The minute you do that, you just get clobbered.
Yeah.
So I think I instill that in all my students. I mean, to try to be very tenacious, not just good artists, but good at reading, again, the tea leaves. What is going on? What is happening? Where is the trend? What is AI going to do to concepting, visual development? How's it going to affect storyboarding? How's it going to affect traditional actual painting? That's an area that everybody keeps asking me about every time I go, what do you think about AI? And I'm like, I don't know. If I had a dime for every time some disruptive thing came along, I mean, I think it's going to be an amazing thing. I think it's going to, in a lot of ways, and it's going to have its, it will displace some people for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, that happened when, digital painting came, guys that were having little photo, shops and stuff went out of business, I mean, I mean, it's going to affect some people, but I think what I see now happen is a lot of people coming back in to train traditionally because, the traditional painting or creating art at a high level by a human, if it ever gets to the point where being done by a robot or a replicant or like Blade Runner type, is more valuable than a person, then we're all screwed. So what's the point? Why worry about it? I don't know. I'm not terribly worried about it. I think it's a cool collaboration tool. It's beautiful at making up really obtuse ideas. And then riffing off them if you can actually paint. Because what do you do when you go on Pinterest? You take a bunch of images, you splice them up, dice them up, change them, alter them, put them into an illustration, and then come out with a painting that's yours. But you just stole the 14 different images and revamped them. I mean, that's what AI does. I mean, it just does it faster and more abstract. But I don't like it in some ways, but I don't hate it, and I don't think there's any point in hating it because it's not gonna go anywhere. So I think you should be really exceptionally skilled. Like a lot of the guys at my school that are the best, that make the best livings, they make all their money selling originals after the job is done. The job, because they can paint originals, right? Not because they're a digital painter, but they have an original piece of cover art from Star Wars. And they paid $500 to do it, which is a joke, but they sell it for $5,000 as an original.
Yeah.
So if you're a digital painter, you don't have that access to that secondary market, So, but it's a 10 to 1, it's a 10 to 1, 10 years to learn how to paint traditionally versus 10 months learning how to do it digitally. So I mean, it's a very, and I don't have any issue with digital painting. I think it's phenomenal.
It is.
But I do think it's open to, it has more of a vector towards being affected by AI than traditional does.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And that's just the way it is. I mean, the way I see it. But so I think, people learning the traditional skills, a lot of people jump ship early on with that because it was a lot quicker to go get your digital skills up and then just work in that way. But it was kind of like a false sense of security, because you didn't know, right on your, hind end was AI coming up behind you. And that's going to come up really strong in the next 3 or 4 years. It's already, the exponential learning is going to be crazy.
Yeah, their forebrain didn't see what their hind legs were going to have to do. And that's
so I mean, sometimes you take the path, taking the path less traveled, the difficult one, I think is always the right one. It's always the good one. But no one wants to do that because it's hard. It takes a lot of fortitude to do that.
Yeah. And there's that Donald Rumsted thing. It's strange that you can quote people from all over the world and it's nothing to do with art, but he said there's the unknown, there's the known, the unknown, and the unknown unknown. And when I first heard that, I went, yeah, that makes sense. It took a pause for me to get it. And that's what you were predicting there, the unknown unknown. And
Yeah,
there's
the black
another
swans,
unknown.
those black
Yeah.
swan events that you just don't see, no one
Yeah.
sees coming, those are the ones you really have to look out for. But you can you can find yourself living in a very, fearful kind of, conspiratorial type way that you don't want to. So it's a very delicate balance with being able to kind of see where the trends are going and see what's happening without
Yeah.
catastrophizing it all and making it into something that's really negative. You want to kind of look at it like, okay, what is the best place to position myself going forward with this idea that we are going to be dealing with artificial intelligence and robotics and things of that sort? Do I just stop painting and creating altogether and just, give up because we've got this new system of creativity that's starting to come online? Or do
Yeah.
we learn to dance with it? We learn to riff with it. We learn to explore it. And I've seen some really great artists doing that. It doesn't take away me wanting to still put paint to a surface or ink to a surface or do all these old obscure languages. Like they're almost like that one you're looking at right now, all those inks. That's pretty much Latin right
Yeah.
there. It's dead. It's a dead language, right? But
It's gorgeous.
the amount of phenomenal dexterity that you're going to get from doing that you can carry into all your other mediums, I can't even put a value on that.
Yeah. Yeah, Joseph Clement Cole and all those guys. I hope they never get forgotten, but I'm with you, Jeff. My favorite inker, and I don't think anyone has ever surpassed Frank Frazetta. The way, even someone said something once before, he says, he won't be remembered for his paintings, he'll be remembered for his ink drawings. And I thought, don't be silly. And now I'm starting to gravitate that way because his ink drawings were just off the charts. Did anyone ever do it better? And can it ever be done again? I mean, you're there, Jeff, but for me, when I look at Frank Frazetta's work, I'm still enthralled with every one, but there was one in particular, and I think it was called Tarzan and the Oper or something like that, where he's swinging through the trees with a maiden over his shoulder. You know the one?
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I thought that's impossible. That was my first thought. That's impossible for anyone to do, and yet there it was, and it stuck with me all my life, and I still look at that today. Frank Frazetta is one of the few artists where I admire him more as I know more instead of less.
He was such an anomaly, but he was, just when we were talking that time I met him, I mean, it was really funny because he's so quirky, like he's definitely, on the spectrum for sure. I mean,
No, really.
he maybe is the spectrum. I don't know. Um, I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, like anytime I meet anyone, it's because I am also bona fide for sure on, every time I talk to anybody, they're all, yeah, you're way off the bell curve. That's all they say, like, which basically means you're not sitting in that normal spot that most people are in. You're somewhere way to the one side or the other, but they really can't, they don't know how to really, quantify that, like what does that really mean? It basically just means neurodivergent, which is the more probably tactful, appropriate terminology for it. Rather than being on the spectrum, it would be you're
Yeah,
neurodivergent, which means you process differently than most people, and most
yeah,
of the greatest people on the planet do that. Whether it's just name them. I mean, the original Tesla, so far off on the spectrum, it's ridiculous. Einstein, any of them, any of the great
yeah,
thinkers, the great executors, are going to be Asperger's, this, that, OCD, whatever you want to, mixes of all these different crazy mindsets that are absolutely beautiful, but they're so underappreciated and so ostracized, that it's ridiculous, yet those are the people that basically forged the whole humanity forward. A lot of them, in my opinion, are the eccentrics, those people that are just, you wouldn't work that hard if you were normal. You wouldn't push that hard into
yeah,
these things if you were a normal person.
yeah. They're balancing on the unknown ledge, aren't they? They want to take it just a little bit further and see what that is. Jeff, I love that drawing.
That's
That's
a
yours, right?
figure.
No, no, this is actually one of my students. This is actually Eric, and I think Ben.
Get out of here. Is that Ben Young on the left?
I think Ben's on the left, I believe, and I think Eric's on the right.
I love
These guys,
Ben
again, these
Young's
were guys that
drawings.
when I met them, they could not draw. I
It's
mean,
crazy.
all these guys were basically just young, ambitious individuals that were just like putty, and it was so
Yeah.
fun to work with these guys because Ben's still there, Eric's still there. Eric's probably going on 30 years with me. He's my right hand guy. He's phenomenal. He deserves all the success he's getting. Ben's phenomenal. All the teachers were birthed out of the school, and that was an intentional thing. I've had many people offer to teach that were phenomenal, but I just like the camaraderie and the loyalty and the consistency you have when everybody comes up together and out of the same soup pile. It's a very difficult way to run a school, and
Yeah.
most people would never be able to do it. It's just too impossible. It's almost impossible to do. But it's something that I just always believe so heavily in. And then I just I've in the beginning I didn't really have a lot of options because whoever was good enough, I had to make a teacher, and then so I could replace myself to build another layer of the school. But a lot of them, so I did make some mistakes along the way, picking people that maybe I shouldn't have. But ultimately now, I mean, the amount of, like, it's one thing to, I think, train someone to be a good artist or assist them in training, because you don't really do, it's a collaboration for sure. But to then train somebody to be a phenomenal teacher is a whole nother level of training
Yeah.
that goes beyond just getting somebody good enough to go out and say maybe peddle their wares and make a living at it.
What
So
do
I'm
you
very,
Yeah,
very
what do you
proud of the
think?
teachers. I mean, each one of them are so dear to me. I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah.
What
No,
do you
that's
think makes a
successful.
good teacher? I'm sorry, I gotta.
Oh, that's a good question, Rachel. Go on. Go ahead.
I gotta butt in here. What do you think makes a
You
good
have to.
teacher?
It's not just skills, like the skills to given, but it's a sincere love of people. And also, there's givers and takers primarily. I mean, you can break people down into one or the other almost. There's people that like to take and don't like to give that much. And there's people that like to give and they don't take that much. So you always want someone that's a giver, that gives freely of their knowledge, their energy, their information. You don't want somebody that's, got a lot of baggage that's going to be like either hoarding their information or leveraging it or trying to get ego gratification from it or trying to power play with it. Those do not make good teachers, right? So you spot people that are, they have to have a certain level of personality and charisma, but which can be cultivated and brought forth over time. You want a variety of people's personalities: funny, serious, stoic. Like Eric's more like Spock. I'm a little bit more like Captain Kirk. You've got Ben, who's just really quiet and poignant. You've got Meadow, who's funny as can be. So you've got all these personalities that also make a very organic whole to the environment. But a teacher really is, someone that's called forward to do acts of service. It's an act of service to teach because you're going to use some of your best energy to prop up people that really probably will never use what you're giving them. But you still have to do it with the same integrity and the same love and the same inspiration as you would if the person was truly gifted and you knew they were going to go the distance. You don't play favorites. You just love the human experience. You love to shepherd people through it, and you build a community of people, and you basically just, your own sphere of influence is the most, I believe that's, if everybody just took their sphere of influence and made it the best as possible, the world would be a great place.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
it? Imagine.
So,
Oh, Jeff,
what?
I love that.
I got another question. What
Sorry,
possessed
Rachel, go
you
ahead.
to open an atelier? Because I had never even heard that word until I found Watts Atelier.
Well, I
Like
mean, in the
what?
beginning, it was Jeff Watts art instruction. And, it was the most,
Okay.
gray, boring. I was 22 years old. I didn't have a place to train. I moved back with my father to train with him, but I was disappointed in the colleges. I didn't like the teachers. I thought they didn't know what they were talking about. They taught poorly. The models didn't model well. The lighting was terrible. The students had tons of bad attitudes, and I didn't want anything to do with any of it. So I was like a really gifted young student that had got an exposure to an incredible school at a young age. And I was a good self-starter, and I was always a good athlete, and I always trained myself. And so for me, it was just, okay, I can either go into this terrible environment or I can create my own. And when I created it, there was no internet. There was no way to get students. It was extremely, excruciatingly slow. It was about as humble as it could possibly be. It was me with four other people crammed into a tiny little, closet, trying to basically just keep my skills from atrophying. And there was no intention of really making a school. And Atelier harkens back to turn of the century France. It's a French word, obviously, and it means studio environment. And it's basically an apprenticeship style of training that harkens back to the late, probably in its best, in my opinion, it was probably the late 1800s. and that would be France being the Ateliers, the academies of Spain and of Italy. Those were the big places where the best art was being created, the best students, the best everything was the best. The Renaissance, all through that time period. Now it's China, Russia, and the United States, probably, quite frankly, for the best training. The Europe is kind of a wasteland of training now. It doesn't have it. It lost its soul. It lost it's too. I think they're too jaded by how much good work is around them. And you can go trip over Bernini in Florence. I mean, shit. You're gonna go down the street and bump into one. They're everywhere. So I mean, these people grew up with this incredible execution around them, and they're kind of slightly complacent to it. Like, oh, it's already been done. Yeah, it was, a long time ago. Whereas, I mean, for us, the United States, it was more probably the golden age of illustration was quite an amazing period for the art, and kind of kept a lot of the, old skills still alive when it was kind of being lost in Europe to abstract expressionism and all the other crazy stuff everybody was doing. The Russians kept a pretty strong tie to it, and so did the Chinese through the Russians. I think also kept a very strong tie with the discipline that they have. So there's still really beautiful pockets of strength in training, but the ateliers were beautiful. And there was a book called The Twilight of Painting by R.H. Grimmel, I think, and it's a very rare book, but it talks about why and how it all came to be that the art that it imploded. And it was really the French Revolution and that whole bringing down Napoleon and all that, where they just came in and gutted everything and got rid of the Atelier system, got rid of everything that had anything to do with that period, and replaced it with a similar style of training that we do here in the States, where it's like, go into a 4-year university, don't repeat anything, get a piece of paper and come out and know nothing. And basically in art, you need to take head drawing 22 times with the same guy over 5 years, grinding it out with the subtlety of the language and really becoming intuitive at it. And you can never allow someone to do that in an organized style of education, because they'll never graduate. You'd have them in school forever, and they should be, but that's not going to happen. So back in the ateliers, you would go in and you might be there for 20 years before you became a master, and you would work with a master to become a master. And it was a very poetic style of training and learning that was probably one of the strongest that's ever existed, but has more or less been lost to history, other than the resurgence of it in the United States with places like our school, the Atelier that we have, which that's why our tagline is preserving the tradition of the masters, because that's what it's doing. I mean,
I think you've done that.
yeah, and that's what I feel so proud about. I mean, I could die tomorrow and I'd be fine. So I don't really have a lot. Like, I have to go out and do paintings and sell them for lots of money to a lot of rich people that can hang in lots of beautiful houses that are never going to be seen by anybody. That's great. It's fine. But maybe 5-10 years ago, I decided, this is my legacy. This will be what I'm remembered for. It's probably going to leave a lot more behind than if I just went and painted for myself selfishly, which is a part of me that wants to do that. I mean, you've trained your whole life. Of course you want to, be out, but I was in the Prix de West for 10 years, and that's next to Jeremy Lipkin and me in situ, and, and Scott Burdick and Susan Lyon and Gearhartz and Z.S. Lang. I mean, you name it. Every good painter on the planet's in that show. I mean, the best painters that are living right now are in that show. And, it's a pressure cooker, and it's hard to be in there, peddling your wares next to those guys. But it was really fun. The competitive side of myself absolutely loves those kind of environments and actually thrives in them. But there's also more to it than that for me. There's way more than just, getting high prices for paintings. And I think it's all cool, and I have no issue with it whatsoever. But I do think it's fascinating. It's just fascinating, how art monetized works, whether that's being an illustrator or being a fine artist or being a commissioned portrait painter or being an educator. It's you're always going to be, in my opinion, it's slightly icky, selling yourself in that way. I mean, I always thought of my art as a really pure thing. And so it's taken a while to reconcile with just monetizing it. I've never really liked to monetize it, but you got to make a living somehow. And it's not a bad thing to do. It's just something that each person has to figure out how that fits into their life and who they are, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the brutal struggle, isn't it, Jeff? The brutal struggle all the time. We'd all just love to sit in our little hobby caves and paint and draw. That's my dream.
Yeah.
But you know what you were saying about you got plastic surgeons in your class. I get doctors all the time. So look at what they do. Look at the incredible stuff they do. And at the end of the day, what they really want to do is come and learn how to draw.
Well,
So anyone of us says, you know, what's it all about? Well, there it is in a nutshell. You
well,
know,
it's
it's what
funny though,
we
because I mean
needed.
they would come in to sculpt with us because they have to sit and literally carve somebody's nose into an attractive nose. And if you can't do it in clay, how are you going to do it in flesh?
Oh yeah.
I
Of
mean,
course you're
I
in.
mean, if you can't sculpt a
Yeah.
beautiful nose, good luck operating on one and making it look that way. I mean, so to
Makes
me,
sense.
it was absolutely essential that these guys were as good or if not better than we were. But that was not the
Yeah.
case. I mean, I would not have these guys operating on me, that's for sure. Um, I just wouldn't. I'd be like, no, that ain't gonna happen. Not if you can't do it, if you can't do it in clay, you're not working on my network, man.
That's a great point. That's a
I
great
mean,
point.
it is what it is. It's like they say you should artists have a hand of a surgeon, and I used to say that, and people would get really mad at me, like saying, "Oh, you're so pretentious. You think you're like as good as a surgeon." I'm like, listen, you're taking it out of context. I don't want my surgeon to have a shaky, bad hand, right? I mean, they need to be able to cut within millimeters of whatever, and if they don't have an excellent hand, that's the last person I want operating on me. But I mean, so a surgeon should have an artist hand, really.
Yeah.
And an artist should have a surgeon's hand, really.
Yeah.
And that means, just absolutely top 1% elite dexterity, pressure sensitivity with tools, with any kind of tool, whether it's your fingers in clay or it's an ink brush or a quill or an oil brush. I don't care what it is. I mean, you need to have, so any technique as a training that makes you superior in your dexterity. And that's why I favor brush inking and quill inking so much, is because there's nothing harder than that. I mean, period, that
Yeah.
I've run up against. So yeah, executing like Bernie Wrightson, executing like Frazetta with no whiteout, every pressure sensitivity, every line premeditated, no errors, or if the errors are made, they need to be quickly made to look like they were a success. It's an amazing medium to force you to have. So you get into charcoal or oil, and it's like you died and went to heaven. I mean, it's the easiest medium compared to that. I mean, you just move the stuff around till it looks good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, oh wow, I don't have to do it first time every time. No, I
Yeah.
mean, so there's no. I mean, that's why I still train people in these old, archaic, methods. Not because I'm going to expect a bunch of people to go out and be comic inkers. That ain't going to happen. But they are going to have a dexterity far superior when they pull their oil strokes and they want to use broken color. They want to get a really beautiful lick of paint on a highlight or something. The way you push and pull that brush and it expands and contracts as you're pulling it
Yeah.
it's hyper dexterous, hyper dexterous.
Yeah. I'm going to shout out for your new course, actually, Jeff, because I'm going to take it.
Mhm.
And I was watching because
The
you did
Salva J.
a,
Salmon one, right?
yeah, you were doing a really generous, free shot at it, like an hour or something the other day. I
Yeah,
was
I love
watching it.
watching those videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an amazing one. But you know what, Jeff? He made it look too easy. And I thought, Jeff, he's just doing he's distilled 25 years of what we fought or we at the coal face worked all this out over 25 years. Jeff's just showing it like now, all in one hit, and making it look so easy. And you did say an important thing as well, is that those academic paintings that look so incredible and seem to be the hardest thing to do are actually doable with instruction. Whereas
Hmm.
the abstract stuff, that's a little bit harder because you're going to have to use something else. You're going to have to use your inner core to say what's the right thing to do here. Whereas you were laying that down, and Jeff, I would have loved to have that at 22. If I would
Yeah,
have expedited.
I always wondered, like, is anybody even going to watch this thing? There's going to be like three people, but
I was watching it.
I watched I
my
watched
whole
multiple
school was
times.
designed really for this, for the minority, not the majority. I mean, I would love everybody to want to be that serious and want to train at that level of seriousness. But I understand that it's a hard pill to swallow and it's difficult, So I think, I've always come in looking for 500 people on the planet or, whatever that want to be exceptional craftsmen. And my whole school ethos is around that mentality. it's not for everybody, and it's a lot to swallow sometimes. I'm a very intense person. I'm very driven, very tough love kind of guy. So for me, but I do have huge amounts of a huge heart, huge amounts of love for people, tons of them. I mean, I've been tapping into that more and more with the kind of wisdom schools I've been going to, and the time I spent studying myself. Because I mean, that old saying, "Know thyself." I mean, you gotta be so strong in your convictions, strong in your beliefs. You don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to. I mean, to me, the better you get, the kinder you can afford yourself to be. And I've always
Absolutely.
wanted to be one of those guys that, is totally approachable. I love, like talking to these great Richard Schmidt when he was around, or Frazetta, and not feeling like I'm less than them, but just like, no, I've been in the trenches. I get it. I know where you guys are at. I can talk your language. I got it. And then have them reciprocate that way and say, because when you're part of that brotherhood, and you don't have to be that exceptional level to be part of that brotherhood. Robert Henri talks about that a lot, the brotherhood, and what it means to be a part of it. And anybody can be a part of it to whatever degree that they are at. But there's this unspoken, that when yours get to a certain level, there's no accident that you got to that level. I mean, it's not genetics, it's not accidental. It's sweat equity, intelligent, directing your energies with intelligence, really. And intelligence, higher knowing, but also the intelligence, the internal intelligence to know how to navigate very obtuse and abstract concepts. It's almost like really advanced physics, where
Yeah.
it transcends the basics of algebra and calculus and trigonometry and all that, and goes into bending concepts into new concepts that nobody's discovered yet, like Einstein would do, or Tesla would talk about. And I remember I had a gentleman in my school that was became a great friend, but he was a PhD from Princeton. He was a neuroscientist. He worked at the Salk Institute. Brilliant, brilliant, and studied the brain, studied the mind, came in, thought he would break me down into an algorithm and learn how to do what I do in a very short period of time. He was there for at least 6, 7 years,
Yeah.
had such a hard time with the intuitive side of it. It was like I was talking Greek to him, when it was like, hey, feel your way through color, feel your way through this, remember a sergeant that you saw, and remember the feeling you had when you saw it, and then let that guide you through painting a nose. Let that guide you through what's happening in front of you, not the thinking of it, but the feeling of what you felt when you saw that and when you experienced that.
Feel
Let
the
that
force.
guide you, not the thinking mind, the feeling part of you. And so for some people, man, the smarter they are, the harder it is for them to tap almost into
That's
that. It's really
it's
funny.
true.
Yeah.
It is funny. It's like that. It's very easy to paint when you don't know how, and very difficult once you do. It's that
Yeah.
kind of thing, And I
Yeah.
had
It's
a
like that.
student.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a
There's
student
also
like
that
that.
saying. I love that saying that, for those who understand, no explanation is necessary. Necessary for those who don't, none is sufficient. It's
There's so
either
much,
yeah,
and that's the funny thing. That's what's great about talking with you as well, Jeff. That you've come this. You've done so much for so long, so well, that there's so much to mine there, and we got to kind of treasure you because there's. I mean, how much more experience can anyone else have? And that's what we.
it's so flattering, and you're such a kind man. I mean, you're always giving me good kudos, and I appreciate that. I mean, I know it's funny because I wasn't. I mean, I was a really odd little kid, man. I mean, I had a lot of learning issues when I was very, very young, and I always
Yeah,
saw the world very differently. So it was just very. I think there's a part of me that's always going to feel like that kid that had the learning issues, when I was a kid. And so
yeah,
no matter how good I get, how much I accomplish, it's one of the things I've really been working on is to be able to really step back and take a step back out of the weeds and really look at the contribution to other people that I've made, and to really
yeah,
feel good about that, because for the longest time I just couldn't feel any of that. I couldn't feel any.
yeah. Me too. Me too. But look at Ben Young, for instance. Ben Young is now he's not a product, but Ben Young would not be this incredible artist if you weren't there. If not, they use it in law, don't they? If not for Jeff, would Ben Young be this good? You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
of
I
course,
mean,
Ben,
it's funny because
he's
Stan was with me 13 years, I think,
yeah,
from being a young child to an adult, um,
yeah.
that journey. And I think to see what he's been able to do with it,
Look where he
I feel
went.
so
Yeah,
proud, because it really is an extension of just, the school,
yeah,
and what it's allowed, or how it's splintered out. We've had guys that have come from Europe and trained with us off and on, trained online, come back, train in person, go back, go train, and then start their own little atelier in New Zealand and Munich and different parts of Germany. We got 2 or 3 there, one up in Canada. So it's people, really letting it spider out and have a life of its own. It's been really fun to watch.
Yeah. You know what's funny, Jeff? When I went to see you, I got an Uber and I
Uh-huh.
was in the guy's really friendly guy. And that's what I love. I've got a love affair with America. They remind me of people from where I came from, which was Belfast in Ireland, where everyone talks, everyone's talkative. And I was talking to this Uber guy, and I said, I'm going to see this great artist. And he says, oh, well, that sounds great. You're an artist too. And we got talking. And we got to the car park, your car park. And I thought, if I can just sneak in the back, because I was supposed to go there with Christian knees, and there was no sign of Christian. I'll sneak in the back, and maybe, Jeff won't see me. I'll just be in the shadow. And just as I was getting out of the taxi, you got out of your car. And I said to the taxi driver, just hold for a second. He says, why? That's Jeff Watts. He's a great artist. I just want to sneak in afterwards. He says, go see him. He's pushing me. He says, go talk to him. And I says, yeah, I can't do it. I'm like a child. So he basically pushed me out of the Uber.
That's
And there
great.
you were. Yeah,
I'm
and you
so,
were the friendliest.
I'm like the most regular dude ever. I'm so down to earth. I hope. I mean, at least I
Yeah.
feel like that's how I come off. I hope that's how I come off.
You did, and you were the friendliest guy as well. And I said something that sounded like a bit boastful, but I didn't mean it that way. I says, "Do you know who I am, Jeff? Because I didn't want to just come into your class. Who is this guy? He's here too early, And you said, "Yeah, of course, come on in." And you showed me very welcoming, and you showed me a Dean Cornwall on your wall, and that was just astonishing. Here's a man that's created this incredible thing and now owns
Oh,
a Cornwall.
I love collecting art. I wish I could, and I'm hopefully down the road more, but I have a lot of nice pieces over the years that I
Yeah,
just, it's funny because I don't know how you could be an artist and not want to own other art,
yeah,
great artists. I mean, it just feels like a natural fit, but it's hard
yeah,
to acquire such things because it requires a lot of money. But I think
yeah,
again, always been a huge appreciator of collecting and the collectors that collect our art because we wouldn't have a career without them. I
yeah,
mean, it's
absolutely.
amazing people that appreciate the arts and support it in that way. So I've always been really, really, not everybody has to do. Some people just support, and that's doing in its own right.
Yeah,
It's
it
it's
is. Yeah.
a huge service.
I love my collectors. They've always been the nicest people. Well, they
Yeah,
have to be, because if they weren't, I wouldn't be painting for them. It's as simple as that. But they just tend to be wonderful people because they've got the heart. They love art.
yeah, yeah.
They just,
They have the artist spirit. They just don't
yeah,
didn't. They maybe took a different course in life, but a lot of them are
yeah,
in their own right. They're artists of numbers, artists of whatever. They could be culinary artists. They could be. Everyone's an artist. I mean, to me, it's like you don't
yeah,
have to be putting images on paper or canvas to be an amazing artist of some sort. There's artists with words. There's artists with thinking. I mean, it's amazing. So I think yeah, they need to kind of reframe that. Like a lot of people say, "Are you an artist?" No, no, I'm not an artist. "Oh, really? Let's take a
yeah.
look at what you do. What do you do well? I mean, you know.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
say you're not a boxer until you take a purse, which is bizarre because you got Sugar Ray Leonard knocking 10 bells out of guys in the Olympics, and he's not a boxer yet until he takes a purse. It's a
I
really
love your
strange thing.
I love your little sayings. They're so clever.
Yeah, this
Thanks.
is great. This is great, both of y'all. I feel like
Yeah,
both of you guys have done a lot to inspire a lot of the younger generation, and I think that'll continue to happen. And all the
thanks,
content
Rachel.
you're putting out online, all these videos you're putting out, I think people will just keep finding them and keep learning. And I feel like the first time I found your class, Jeff, was 10 years ago, and it was the first time I started watching Steve Houston's videos too, and I was going to university, and then you released that video on how to train to become a successful working artist. And I watched that video and I was like, holy cow, I agree with everything
It was so
here.
funny because I was so bent out of shape when I shot that, and I remember we just turned it on, and I said, "What? Okay, that's it," and I just let it rip. And then I told my wife at the time, I said, um, I'm going to put that out, and she, "You can't put that out." I'm like, "Oh, we already uploaded it." I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was
Dude, I
it
needed
was
that.
intense. I came really close to mentioning names of places, but I didn't, because I didn't want to but I was so mad about the fallout I've been seeing from young students coming in that had $300,000 in debt, couldn't draw or paint at all. and they were
Yeesh.
basically probably first semester, maybe first year at our school. And I'm like, you could have gone to our school for decades and been so good with the money you spent. It would have been
Yeah.
ridiculous. And you could
Yeah.
come here and get exceptional at 1/50th of what it would have cost you to go to that place that didn't work out for you. But so it was very difficult for me to stomach that, because by the time they got to me, they were always bent out of shape, mad, and had no money
Yeah.
left. And I was like, I didn't do that. I
Yeah.
mean, you went to the wrong place. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You
it
made the
almost
wrong
like
Yeah.
decision.
works against you as an artist because you need a little bit of the smallest amount of financial freedom will help you out a lot, and it kind of shackles you to all this debt, and then you're
Yeah.
not able to pursue your art as well as maybe you would have if you didn't have
Yeah,
all
I mean,
that
like
debt.
our school is so cheap. It's ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah,
it's absolutely ludicrous. And I made it that way because I want people to be able to afford to go there by working at Starbucks or going down and doing this. And we've had kids that have literally put themselves through our school by working at places like Starbucks, including all of my teachers. Um, and I'm so proud of that because, I mean, the reason schools are so expensive is because the government gets involved and they give money to those in the form of loans, and then the schools can rake the classes prices up to $2,000 a class or something. Where our class would be $300. So
Yeah.
and it would be 50 times better in my opinion. So, yeah, it's just ludicrous. I mean, the educational system, in my opinion, has failed everybody.
yeah, it's become
On
more
almost
and
every
more
Yeah.
level.
evident.
On almost
Yeah.
every level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I see, especially in America, when I heard that you can be $250,000 in debt from an art school, that doesn't compute with me. An art
yeah,
school where you just pick up, the simplest of tools and make marks with them. How does it become $250,000 in cost?
No, it's highway
Is that
robbery.
true? Yeah,
And then
it's
people just don't think
amazing.
about it. It's like, these are businesses. These are not, it's like anything. They're not there for your betterment, really. I mean, again, and I'm not saying education in and of itself is exceptional, but you can educate yourself now by literally by just being disciplined. You could go and do master classes, you could do Skillshare, you could
Yeah,
do whatever. You could become an elite thinker, an elite mental, just intellectual with your own prowess. You don't need, I mean, not that I'm not saying most people are too lazy and wouldn't know how to do that, and wouldn't you wouldn't be able to guide themselves through that on their own. But I'm just saying, like as I see even some of the newer aspects of thinking that's coming up, it seems like there's a lot of entitlement, not a lot of outside the box thinking, the ability to actually self start, to pick yourself up when you fail, to understand what failure really is, and to really navigate the tumultuous aspects of learning. It doesn't seem like they're teaching that anymore, or maybe they never did. I don't know.
yeah.
You know?
Not in the past
yeah,
10 years at least. And then I also like how because I rewatched the video the other day to like refresh myself, and it feels relevant still. And I like how you broke it down. You're just very blunt. You're like because the 4 year university, the 4 year system doesn't work. Like you're not gonna come out the other end knowing how to draw and get a job in art. It doesn't work that way. It's gonna take 10, 15 years, and then you're gonna keep doing it the rest of your life, and never. There's no ceiling to it. Like, and it's
Yeah,
just.
and
I love how
that's
blunt you were about just how much work it's gonna take, and you want to get to the top 5% to like work at these big studios or have, be one of the best of the best, like that everyone wants to be.
Yeah.
The amount
I
of work.
mean, but think about it. Think about it. If you're going out and you're playing basketball and you're the big kid in the block and you're really good, I mean, are you going to play in the NBA? No, you're good, but I mean, you take every good kid that's in every block on every place in the planet and take the best one from all those. Now put them all together. Now get the best top five, 1% of those people, and they're going to be the ones playing in the NBA. So it's not, is it fair? I think so. I mean, is it brutal? Yes. Is it disheartening to a certain level? Yeah, it could be, but it depends. I mean, how you see things. I'm not saying that there's not layers of people that you could be a coach, you could do work in aspects of that industry, but being a star in that industry amongst other stars, I mean, it's hard. So if you are going to tell people that everybody's going to go to an art school and come out working, that's just a lie, and it's a travesty, because when it doesn't happen, people are crushed. And if you give them the proper training and they give it 110% and they still don't make it, at least they know that they had a fair shot at it and they had the right education. And then it's just a matter of, yes, even then, not everybody's going to necessarily make it. And there's different levels of make it, right? I mean, there's the brass ring where you do what you want, live where you want, and make tons of money. Okay, that's 1% of the general populace probably, that gets to do that, and they're going to work really hard to get to do that. And then you're going to come up against people that are actually geniuses and naturally talented and stuff like that on top of it, with a work ethic of you as well. So you take a genius that doesn't think they're a genius and give them the work ethic of somebody that's not very good that has to become really good, and you're going to get something magical. But again, these are all layers of things that people want to be aware of, so that they don't, and that doesn't mean don't try to live your dream, but be realistic about what that looks like and what that means, and don't be so idealistic that you think it's just going to land in your lap with very little work. And that means work meaning intelligence on how you choose to train and who you choose to train with. That's rule number one. I mean, like, that's one of your first rites of passage, is picking the proper place to train. And then there's all kinds of other rites of passages that have to occur in order for you to see it through as a realization. You marry the wrong person and you're out of the game. I could list 50 things that would take you out of the game almost immediately. So, but this is the reality of talking to somebody realistically about what it means to make the proper decisions to become a professional at anything. But in the arts, it's even a little more difficult to some degree, because people don't see the arts as essential, unfortunately. Even though I just said the whole world is created by us. Anything that's worth having, doing, exploring, experiencing, in my opinion, most of it is done by creatives and artists. So, you have to really see what you're up against, understand the topography that you're willingly going into, and then work incredibly intelligently, incredibly hard, and you will do extremely well. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
Wise words, Jeff. That's just riveted there. This is why we invited you on, Jeff. This is gold. That's why I said earlier, are we recording this?
Yeah.
I had a big
Just-
palpitations.
I always tell people, like, you can always just mute me, like on the videos on my phone. Just put it on mute if you don't want to hear me jibber jabber, because I'm gonna be let it rip, because it's like, to me, I feel like the value of a teacher in art is to be able to get inside their head and have them share the dialogue that they have as they execute. Like, what is that topography look like? Now, it doesn't mean that yours is going to look the same as me at all, but I mean, to be honest and to be able to share that honesty in a way that, and that's why I'm proud I didn't really edit anything, because when I screw up a painting in the middle of a demo, man, I'm going to have to fix it right in front of you, and there's going to be some
Essential.
probably expletives. There's
it does make
some,
it more entertaining.
Yeah, some colorful language. Some.
Yeah, I've heard you curse that train, Jeff, going past.
Oh,
Heard you curse that train.
Yeah, it's just like it's so funny, and it took me so long to move the studio, and like now I shoot up at our school and it's quiet, and I'm like, why didn't I do that like 10 years ago?
It's the stuff you learn, isn't it?
I know.
You know what I'm right? Yeah.
My wife always said that I have masochistic specialitis. Is what. I love that. It's like, yeah, it's true.
That's good.
If it's not ridiculously hard, I don't see a lot of value in it. Yeah.
Well, it's getting better all the time, isn't it? I mean, look, we're looking at 4K and 8K video now, and you look back at your old stuff, and it sounds like you're talking in a tunnel, and it looks like somebody's recorded a thing on a toaster, and you think, wow, we had that stuff back then. Like Rachel and Melanie are teaching now; they're teaching it at Proco, and it's just having all that new stuff as well. It's an amazing time to be alive.
I think it's like 4K. I mean, what do you want to see, my zits or something? I mean,
I know.
A little bit.
I mean,
it's the same.
I don't really care so much about that. I mean, it gets to a point where at some point it's almost too high res. But
it is.
But I do like somewhere in that 1080 to even above that. It's fine. To me,
that's plenty.
I think, but yeah, we've learned a lot. I still don't have the whole shooting thing down to a T. We're always bootstrapping everything, always have. So
it's forever. It's forever.
I think everybody does it that way. I'm kind of the Microsoft mentality where just put it out, fix it later.
Yeah.
It's like you're never gonna get it out if you want it to be perfect. Nothing's ever gonna come out. So,
I think that's brilliant advice. That's brilliant advice, because you also have the person that never puts anything out because they're waiting for perfection, and they never do put it out. It's almost like they're hamstringing themselves because they really are frightened to put it out. It's not so much that
It's
they're
highly
waiting for
vulnerable.
it.
It's very vulnerable,
Yeah,
very scary to put yourself out there like that. But
it is.
that's what being an artist is. I mean, you got to literally wear your soul on your sleeve, and people are going to crush it and crumple it up and step on it and kick it and all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah,
And you just don't take it personally. It's not. I mean, again, I that's why I don't read comments. I don't worry about it. I know how good I am. I
yeah,
know what I do. I mean, it's like, yeah, go find somebody else if you want. I don't care. I mean, whatever. But it's like, to me, it's more just be genuine, just be authentic, just you know, and that people love that. I mean, they love you watching you mess up and fix it. I mean, it's like
yeah,
what do you see everything perfect first time? I mean, come on, that's not the real world. It's like
yeah,
Instagram. It's like no one's living that life. I mean, it's like, yeah, little glimpses of it, but I mean, come on, is that really how real life looks and real relationships and real everything? It's messy as can be.
yeah. It's really messy. And we had lots of conversations when I came to see you, Jeff. Here's messy. We were talking about before. There's my production schedule,
Madness.
right? So nothing's really magic. And
Oh, it's somebody's grinding it out somewhere to get it, anything
somebody
to
has to
happen.
do it.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
But we were talking before the pod, Jeff, about what you just said there. But the most important advice I got as a teacher was take the personal out of it. And once you do that, the whole world just opens. You just go, it's okay. That's just noise in the background. We're not going to be on our deathbed going, I'm really glad I sorted that guy out on the YouTube channel for the comments he put in. That all that troll stuff just disappears. And then you can just sit and do what you're great at. And this is marvelous stuff that I'm putting up on the screen. I hope it's showing
Yes.
Oh
well
yeah.
enough. I love the
Yeah, it's funny. I
yeah.
get so much. I mean, you're picking. There's so much obscure, weird crap on my Instagram. I mean, I really need to clean my Instagram up, but whatever. Again, it's like I laugh because I have so much stuff I could put up all the time, and I just find so much resistance because I'm just like, oh, what's the point? That thing's such a hodgepodge of stuff. And but
Yeah.
that's funny because that's kind of why I'm so, I guess, such a good teacher, is because I'm so scatterbrained and eccentric with what I like. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
all over the place. There's
Yeah.
not a genre I don't like and like to play around with. So it's kind of like, you're kind of like, it just makes you, I've been really, it's fascinating to me because they're all languages, and it's kind of like speaking 20 different verbal languages. I mean, they're very nuanced, but people don't seem to respect that as much as if you came in and said, yeah, I speak 12 different verbal languages, I think you're some kind of genius. But if you said, well, I speak 12 different visual languages fluently,
Yeah.
no one seems to bat an eyelash. They're just like, oh yeah, whatever. And it's like, no, 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 you don't understand. Every one of these is as complex as Chinese, Russian, this, that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's all such an incredibly nuanced, amount of languages.
And one of
And
the
it,
things that Patrick says all the time is every mark is a thought. So like every mark is a thought. It's just like think about it like that. So every mark, so you are like creating a language. You're speaking with lines, is what this is.
yeah, and you want to be poetic, and you want to be like. So I always think of Mark Twain saying, "Pretend like write as if every word's going to be tattooed on your ass." I mean,
He was great. He
yeah,
was terrific.
I mean, it's a very harsh way to
Yeah.
say it, but it's kind of like, you know, being really poignant, and when you think of like every mark being like a punctuation or a spelling
Yeah.
or a word of sorts that needs to be knitted together in a way that would poetically explain, like a great writer. It's very
Yeah.
simple. Writers and songwriters and song and music and all of it is this beautiful flow of organic thought mixed with magic, and mixed with
Yeah.
magical thinking. But man, it's such a blend, and that's the more I get into it, and the more I do things, I realize how magical it really is. But also, it has to
Yeah.
be rooted in intelligence. Also, you have to have both of those things working.
Yeah. He helped me write, actually, Mark Twain. He said, once upon a time he did a speech. He says, sorry about the length of this speech. I didn't have the time to make it shorter. And I thought that was brilliant, And that helped me write. That helped me write all my books. Jeff, you just, not just recently, but fairly recently wrote a book. How did you find that experience?
Oh man, I'm probably the worst writer ever, But I mean, I love the Bridgman books that I did, but and they're so nerdy, and they're so probably again they're for the small minority of people, but
Yeah.
I really love Bridgman. I think he's cryptic as hell. I think I
Yeah.
did hopefully a real service kind of translating him, but I mean I probably wouldn't bet energy would have been better spent on like a Riley book or something, but it was
Yeah.
the next one's coming out here very soon, and I can come back on and talk about it sometime if you want, or demo or
Would
something.
love to.
It's the yeah, the arms and legs version. I did the torso, but it's embedded with like probably like almost 20 hours of video or 40 hours of video in it.
Get out of here.
Yeah, so you
Jeff,
just
that's
you have a QR code and it's all free. You just click on it. And
too generous.
Yeah,
That's almost socialism right there.
I know. That's what
Behave
I
yourself.
think that book should be flying off the shelves. But yeah, no, and then it's also part of our online, right? We have like probably 150 hours of anatomy less online that are phenomenal. So the Bridgman will be part of that. So the actual 100% of watching the whole video would be in the actual course. And then in the book, it's probably like, maybe a 10, 15-minute drawing stripped down to like 2 or 3 minutes. So it gives you but it gives you that meat of it. And then if you really wanted to like nerd out on it and really go whole hog, you would go in and take the course with the book. And then you could like watch me do every one of those drawings from start to finish, and then just think about that. I mean, like if I could sit there with Loomis's book and have him draw those drawings in front of me, start to finish.
Yeah, imagine.
I was studying and just keep rewinding it. I would have been able to fly through that book at Mach 5 and been, even so much better, so much faster. But so I think, trying to use the technology in creative ways, trying to embed the QR codes in there so people have video and audio. And if I didn't, I'd say good 90% of the drawings I filmed. But if I didn't, I'll actually do a verbal audio QR where people can listen to my thoughts on that drawing. And I'll talk about what I did and what I didn't do and why I like it and why I don't, and this and that. So, yeah, I'm just always trying to give as much as I can for a good price. I mean, I've always believed in that, kind of old school that way. And I really feel like, we're probably one of the cheapest, best schools on the planet. I would top 5 probably,
I would say so.
But,
Absolutely. I have your book downstairs. I'll go down and scan that code today.
Yeah, you got. I mean, I don't know. It says right, I hope people understand that. It's like there's QR codes on every drawing. You just click on it, it'll take you to YouTube, and you can watch me do that drawing.
Yeah, that was magic to me before the QR codes. I had future shock. I was a Luddite. I went, get that away from me. Well,
yeah, the QR codes are cute. That's a beautiful technology. I mean, but it is, these scammers use it and people use it for stupid stuff. But the actual technology itself is phenomenal.
Yeah, that hand's brilliant, Jeff.
So simple.
That hand, Jeff, the hand. Fear not the hand. That hand. Look at it.
Oh yeah, I remember when I drew that because these are all life drawings. But I remember channeling. I was looking at a lot of Fetchin's hands, and I love Fetchin's hands. I love they're very kind of slightly cartoony, but very expressive and very. There's a certain poetic way of doing his hands and feet and things of that sort that I've always loved Fetchin's drawings. They're so talk about a guy that had a lot of soul,
Oh yeah, it's all about the soul. Yeah. Do you know an Australian artist called Ivor Helly? Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't.
Have a look, Jeff. I think you'll love him.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those fortunate things. I come to Australia and somebody says Norman Lindsay, and I go, who's he? And then I go, how can I even say those words today when he was such an incredible artist?
There's so many unsung heroes out there, that I always love finding a new one. And then I always have to go out and buy another book. And that's why I have so many books behind me.
Well, you better squash this one. Ivor Helly, squash another one in there.
I will, man. I will definitely. I'm a sucker for a good book. Man.
Oh, me too. I saw I do this nerdy thing, Jeff. Whenever someone's on talking and it's a great artist, I scan their bookshelves and I zoom in on them to see what they've got.
Oh yeah,
and we have pretty much. Yeah, we got the same books.
This is only
we got the same.
You didn't see the rare runs. The rare books are over in the other bookshelf where it's all those are all the really really expensive, hard to find ones that I tracked. Yeah. These ones are, there's some hard ones in there, but a lot of them are just they're your regular good old ones that everybody knows about. The Bridgmans, the Leindeckers, whatever, all the normal ones that everybody's got.
Yeah, one thing I've learned, Jeff, is don't hold the carriage. If you see a great art book, buy it. You come back 2 weeks later and go, ready to buy this. Yeah.
You can sell them yeah, they're like, it'll be like $30 when you bought it, and then $300 10 years later, 5 years later,
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick,
Roy Crinkle.
Your book's like
that.
Yeah.
What's that?
I say your book is like that. It's out of print now, and I have one that you're selling online.
They've out of print so far. Yeah, they just keep going out of print.
I know, that's a great book too. I mean, you've been really burning the midnight oil. You've been hitting it hard.
Yeah. Well, somebody said to me, a friend of mine, Des Embry, says, you've written more books than Andrew Loomis now.
Wow.
It was like a thunderbolt.
That's impressive.
I couldn't believe it. That was bizarre. But I was thinking about Roy Crinkle, Frank Frazetta's friend. He used to steal 3 books from foils in New York. He'd steal three, one to read, one to put on a shelf, and one to show his friends.
Nice.
And he stole them all. I'd steal them from foils.
That's some bad
Imagine,
karma. Come on. Yeah, come on, Crankle.
and he, no, and he would run across
He'll be
Central
working
Park.
off the next one. He'll be working it off.
Yeah. Yeah, what a character. Apparently, he ran across Central Park one night during what was it, a time when there was a martial law or something very strange. You don't know what was going on back then. He said he reckoned someone was shooting at him. I don't understand. I'd have to look into the history of New York for that
Yeah,
one
I
to see
mean,
if
I
it's,
don't know. You hear these, Caravaggio out swashbuckling and, getting
yeah,
some duel with somebody and then come back and do a painting, after you just killed somebody, probably.
yeah. There's color. There's color and there's also, well, there's myth, isn't there?
You never know.
You know,
But it does
you
make
never
for
know.
colorful stories for sure.
It does, yeah. But I was trying to say earlier, I love this drawing here. I love everything about it.
Yeah,
Let's
I think
get,
that one's up at the school right now. Yeah, it was on the wall in the school. We
that's
have all these wall
astonishing.
hangers that we when someone does an exceptional drawing, I'll ask them to leave it behind for future students to be able to admire and also to learn from. So, we have
Yeah,
hundreds and hundreds of them now, and we rotate them on the wall. And that was one from a Friday night
yeah.
workshop I did. I think a 3 hour drawing, probably 2.5 hours or something.
Yeah, I remember looking at all the drawings on the wall when I was there. And how are you finding the newsprint now, Jeff? Like people want to buy my newsprint drawings, and I say, well, they're not archival, but they
I
seem
still
to
sell.
last
I mean,
longer than people think.
I sell them for not much, like $100 or something. I
Yeah,
mean, so most people would be like, they'll last longer than I'm going to be around. That's for sure.
yeah, I think so.
I
I think they last longer than people think they do.
Yeah, I have
You
some that
know?
are 40. I have some that are 40 years old from back when I was in school, and they're a little
Yeah,
yellow, but they're fine. You can hit
yeah,
them with you can buy a aesthetic neutralizer that they use for newspapers because there's a lot of old famous newspapers like Kennedy got shot or something or whatever.
yeah.
And they want to preserve them, so they spray it with this neutralizer, and it stops the acidity in the paper.
Where do I get this neutralizer,
I think
Jeff? Is it only
it's like for it or something. Just look it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a newspaper acid neutralizer. It's probably look it up like on some archival, they probably use them at museums, so you could ask a museum curator, hey, what do you guys use to neutralize the acid in the old newspaper stuff that you got? And I think you could spray these drawings with them, and I should probably do that with all mine, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But I do remember hearing about it, and I never picked it up. But I've got I've got 7,000, 20,000, 100,000 drawings. I don't know how many that
I
are just
have I have fallen for the grift so long, Jeff. I remember there was a art supply store turned up in Brisbane here, and they said archival newsprint. Before they'd finished saying newsprint, I was at their door. I says, "Where
pretty
is this
good.
art?" Yeah, I was there right away.
What was
They
it a
had
good paper? Did you like it?
it was a loady old junk. So I got there. I says, "Where's your archival newsprint?" And these two hippie guys that were so slow moving, and I eventually got it home. I drove home at hyperspeed, cut it into two pieces, left it in the sun. Archival my ass.
Yeah.
Another grift.
Well,
Another
I
grift.
mean, everyone's got a sales pitch.
Yeah, I fell for that so often. But we've been looking for
I
that
would have
holy
too. I
grail.
mean, if it makes you feel any better, I would have probably given it a shot. Why not?
Oh, I flew down there. Now I've got a big roll of non-archival newsprint to get through, and I
Nice.
don't usually buy those. But I don't mind the golden look to it. I think it's fantastic. Now, Jeff, I'm very aware of the time, and I know it's late for you. If you need to get off, that's
Oh,
good for us.
I'm just enjoying. I love to talk. Me, I talk. I've been doing a few of these. I did one with Christian actually yesterday.
Whoa.
Another one.
No, yeah, we just sat down and talked about. I don't know what we were talking. I was just riffing with him. He wanted to do
Yeah,
something. I think he just shot one on Stan, and
yeah.
and he wanted to circle back around. So I was like, yeah, come in and we'll sit and chat.
All right. I saw you in that heat room. You were in a van. That was the one I was watching this morning. You were both in his sketchy van,
Oh
and
yeah. I was in
and
that
apparently it was a
that
sauna.
crazy van. Yeah.
Yeah, a kind of sauna environment.
It's yeah, the people you meet in the art world, it's something else. It's
Yeah,
pretty fun.
it is indeed. Now I'm going to continue going through because I'm such a word hog. We haven't heard from Melanie, and I want to turn it over to the Virginians so that I don't hog the whole thing.
Yeah, Melanie,
And
what do you got for me?
I'll
Yeah,
keep going through.
well,
Melanie, what's in your head?
I actually do have a question about your style of giving critiques because me and Rachel both
Oh,
we're often looking at student artwork and trying to find relevant and beneficial things to tell them. And so I was wondering what you're looking at when you're going to critique a student artwork.
Again, I'm a big proponent of good edges, good value, good shape, design, calligraphy. So you get into like the fundamentals would be proportion, edges, edge control, value control, and then you get into more shapes, and then shapes turn into calligraphy, and calligraphy turns into idealization of form and design and high level manipulation of knowledge. So you start with the more fundamental building blocks, and I'm going to look at that first, and I'm going to say, hey, do they have their solid perspective? Do they have solid edges, solid value? Are their spatial relationships good? Can they get something to look, sound? And then you start getting into the nuance of it and start looking at, well, how do they design within the context of that? Are they, are they a line decker? Are they a Muka? Are they, do they have a way of explaining what they know and what they see that's very individual to them and still has that solidity and that underpinning of foundational solidity. So I think for me, it's a lot of things. So like if I'm ever judging competitions or anything, it's if you don't have good perspective, any of those first ones, it's not getting a prize. Period. End of story. I don't care what idea it was or what kind of anything. If it doesn't check the boxes on the fundamentals, it's not getting something. Some people, vote based on, it's really an emotionally intense idea and I like it, and I'm just not one of those guys. So for me, it's more. I like a good concept. I like a good reason behind. But that's like everything. You should have that built into it no matter what. And then the way you express that idea and bring it to fruition should have good edges and good values and good shape and good design and good calligraphy and good color harmonies and good composition and good all that stuff, right? So, yeah, if I critique someone's portfolio or anything, it's like I'm a harsh critique. I'm saying, do you want the X-rated version or do you want the G-rated? I can make it really easy on you if you want, but you really want the honest one, I'm going to let it rip, man. And you're going to probably go out of there with a licking your wounds, but it's like, what do you want someone to tell you, how great you are, and it not be true. And then you're going to go out and just fall on your face or you're going to, the best, the kindest thing you can do is be honest. You don't have to be a jerk about it. You don't have to make someone cry or anything, but you should just say, my dad used to always say, you have to develop alligator skin. You just have to have a really, really thick skin as an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't be getting crushed every time someone doesn't like something you're doing.
Jeff, I'd have loved to have you on. Yeah. Sorry, Melanie. There, I stole your thunder.
Melanie, was that an okay answer?
No, that was great.
Yeah,
that's
great.
It's definitely. So you would like scale that based off of the student's level.
Well, yeah. I would look, and if it's like some first generation or like first year student, I'm not going to go in there and hammer them. I'm just going to say, I'm going to be kind. Again, I take every situation individually, and I don't generically teach anything. So for me, it's important that I basically customize my teaching to everybody's level quickly. So you have to be able to read their energy. You have to be able to sense where they're at in their journey, what kind of trauma they're working with, what kind of energetic composition they have. Are they a lot of earth? Are they a lot of tree? Are they a lot of fire? Are they a lot of realm? Are they a lot of crystal? What are they? What kind of energy are they showing up with? Are they introverted, extroverted? Are they, kinesthetic? Are they, are they on the spectrum? What to what degree? There's so many factors you have to take in very quickly to get a sense for how you should navigate someone's nervous system and how you should tell them what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing, or can they handle a big dose of tough love, or are you just going to absolutely destroy them? And if so, then the dialogue has to be tempered, even though maybe that's not, or you have to explain to them what you're trying to do. It's very complicated. It's very nuanced. I don't teach generically ever. I never have. It's a lot of work to teach that way. You have to be fully engaged. You have to be fully present. And if you're I've had times when I've come in to teach, my life is literally imploding. It's blowing apart. It's just, I'm in pieces. Shit's going terrible. And then I got to come in and do what I just said to somebody. And that's a real testament of a good teacher. Can you come in and not bring your baggage and drop it off on your students? And yet
that's a superpower.
Take their baggage and hold a container for it when yours is just blown apart. That is the art of teaching, really, to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just had a big blow up with your wife in the car, and then you walk into the class and go, "Hello, students." It's
Yeah, yeah.
really a
Let me
hard
pump
gig.
you up. You know, I mean, and it's like then somebody's whining about something that's absolutely ludicrous, and you're like, you know what? You know, I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
you
Wait till
have
you
no
grow
idea.
up.
You know, but it's yeah, you just, again, it's very difficult to not abuse the power of teaching. You know, you have to be
Yeah,
really aware of what your role is and how you show up. And I've done it horrifically so many times. I mean, I've spent so much time apologizing and swallowing, a bad, you know, over leveraged experience with somebody or whatever. It's just so hard to do it so nuanced. And I take it really hard. So I don't even know why I still teach, to tell you the truth. It's been such it's so brutally hard, it
Yeah,
really
I mean, you obviously have a passion for it though, so.
I mean, yeah, I mean, again, yeah, I'm built pretty uniquely, but I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of the masochistic thing. It's like, really? I mean, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what, what are you doing? I mean, so I don't know. There will come a time when I do step down for sure, and I don't know, probably sooner than later. But because I've done enough of it. I've given so much. So for me, it's more like, what do I want to do on this last half of my life? Do I really want to wash and repeat, or do I want to go out and just travel the world, see things, do things? I'm an avid traveler. I love living in different places. I love experiencing different places. I love to, I want to learn to speak different languages. There's lots of things that I would love to do that aren't putting paint on canvas. I mean, other arts I'd like to learn, music, yeah, I don't know. I don't, I think oftentimes about like people like Dean Cornwell and stuff on their deathbed. He wasn't happy with the sacrifices he made. Neither was Rockwell. I mean, these guys,
yeah.
these guys had not the greatest interpersonal lives. They were kind of in
No.
shambles. So one of the artists I admire most for the collective ability he had to live a complete life would be Joaquin Sorolla. I mean, Sorolla, that guy, the fame, the money, the family, the wife, the love of the wife. I mean, he was the full, from what I can tell. I mean, I didn't get to know him personally, obviously. I mean, but he seemed to have the whole enchilada, you know?
Yeah.
And he
Sargent kind
did,
of played the
yeah.
game well too, I think. Yes, I remember Sargent. He just said, "That's it, no more portraits at 50," and traveled the world. He
Yeah, yeah. I
seemed,
mean, at
but
some point, I mean, again, and there's a
yeah,
guy that really gave everything he wasn't married, he didn't have kids. I mean, he was married to his art, but
yeah,
there is a time when you just say, I've kind of done what I was going to do with that, and it's time to move on, and that's one of the hardest things I think for anybody that's really exceptional at what they do. It's there's always going to be another generation that's begging you to stay around, that wants
yeah,
a big part of you, and you can just bleed yourself dry, doing that if you don't watch out.
yeah. He just reminded me of one of my favorite movie, Cool Hand Luke. Have you seen it, Jeff?
Oh yeah,
Cool Hand Luke.
classic.
Paul Newman. Stop feeding off me! Stop feeding off me! They all wanted a bit of him. Now
Yeah.
here's a quirky question for you, Jeff. If you stop now and you automatically attained all of the skills you needed to do something else, and you just get it, you just have that, what would you do? What would you be?
Oh my God, there's so many things I'm thinking about right now. Oh my God, like I really am enjoying exploring again this plant medicine stuff. I mean, I would probably
Yeah,
go do a vision quest. Probably go down to Ecuador and you do it mano y mano, just you, the medicine, and nature, and you just go out and you spend like 9 days with just you and the medicine, and nobody's there. There's no food.
yeah,
There's no water. It's none of that stuff. You just go out and you just go deep and heal yourself from any of the trauma that you have and any of the stuff. And a lot of times I just really want to push into living at the highest level of my spiritual being, while I'm here. And the art is just a reflection of doing that. I mean, it
yeah,
seems to me like it's absolutely one and the same. There's no difference between those two. Like I've always felt like my school was my church. I always felt like I had a direct conduit to source, whatever that might be for whoever. It doesn't matter to me, like whether it's Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, whatever you want to call it, but it's a direct conduit to source for me. It always
yeah,
has been. And not many people have a direct conduit to source, So, I
yeah,
mean, for me, I love that my art, is that rich, in my life, and that it's just that's why I don't have a lot of ego around it, really, because it's like, what ego of what? What would the ego be? I mean, it's just, yeah, I'm good at it, but who cares? It's just like breathing or eating or anything else. I mean, it's stuff that I need to do, and it's what I do, and it's how I'm wired, and of course that's how I'm going to show up, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be confident about it because it's what I do, and I'm good at it. But I don't look at it and like, oh, look at me and look how great I am and look at that. I mean, I could care less. That's why for me, it's like, it's never been about the roar of the crowd. A lot of what I do is somewhat thankless, and it's very, almost again, like an act of service. It's like, this is what I'm giving to back or moving forward for the next generation. I'm going to make sure that it's preserved. I'm going to make sure the writing method does not die. I'm going to take the reins like Glenn did and Fred and the guys that came before me for that. And I'm going to make sure that it's down and safe and it's in a place where now it's on video. People can learn it for the next 100 years if they want to. And that's fine, and maybe that's what I was here to do. Great. I've done it. Now let me just go live in peace. Let me go do my thing, whatever that is. I don't even know what it is. Sometimes you think you get lost in the whole thing and you just like, what am I doing? Why am I doing?
Taking the ego out was such a big revelation for me as well. It's a funny thing someone said a long time ago, Jeff, and it changed my life. They said, because I was a shy person and still am, still buried in there. And they said shy people are narcissists because they think everyone's looking at them. And I thought, that's brilliant. I am a narcissist. I think everyone's looking at me, and you look around, no one's looking at you. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
With their own shit. Yeah, no one's like.
And it just made me so confident. I started skipping down the street. Nobody's watching. Nobody cares. And it was such a liberating thing. And you just spelled it out.
I think one of the hardest things I see is people being perfectionists too. Like having to be perfect at something. Like it's such a disease of. You just can't ever learn anything if you think you're supposed to be perfect at it. You have to look so foolish and so stupid half the time, doing anything.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I'm looking forward to is going into new areas where I'm just absolutely have to have beginner's mind and I look like a complete, dim bulb. It's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to spin pots. I don't know how to freaking, cook that way. I'm terrible. It's nice. I think it's humbling and it's really beautiful to stay in that humble of learning, even if you are a master in some area or masterful, it's still a fleeting thing. Masterful only remains as long as you're willing to train for it and keep it, aspire to train to keep that mastery. Otherwise, it's just fleeting. I've been masterful at certain things at times, and when I stopped doing them, I lost that mastery. I can't claim that.
Yeah, that rust really sets in quick, doesn't it? Take yourself a little holiday and come back.
Yeah, anything. I mean, and I've lately been testing that a lot because I really haven't been in religious training mode anymore. And, it's like, again, I mean, how long do you train before you say, listen, I got to let some of that go because, this is becoming a full-time job, just trying to maintain 62 different languages that are obscure, just so that I don't make a fool out of myself when I come in to paint, or I can come in and demo at the highest, most elite level for 4 people to see. I mean, it's like, wow, that's a lot of pressure for, I don't know what, so there's a lot of reframing going on in my life right now. A lot of movement and a lot of deep learning happening. And a lot of it just painful. So you just got to go through it. You got to, own it and work through it and become a better person from it and move on. I mean, it's just the way life is interesting. It's nothing if not just ridiculously ironic. The irony of it is not lost on me for sure.
The burden of genius, Jeff. It's your burden. You shouldn't have been a genius.
Thanks, Patrick.
I remember sitting.
Genius, I was sitting in the car. I have no idea.
I was sitting in the car with my dad when I was like 15. Back in Ireland, it's tough. They take you to the building site at 15, and that's your life if you don't watch out. And I was sitting in the back covered in cement, and there was all these businessmen walking through town, and my dad was going, they're the smart guys. And the misery on their faces, and we heard this cackling. It was like the witches from Macbeth. And it was 3 women, cleaners, who cleaned offices, soaking wet, laughing their heads off. And that was a big learning experience for me there, They're not burdened by genius. There's your lot.
There's it's everyone's gonna be stepping in it, man. I mean, no one comes out of this place without a lot of humble pie. So it's just, I mean, it's why we're here. It's a school, we're in a school and we're learning lessons, and it's not, and it's poetic. I mean, none of this is to hurt you, and there's no such thing. Everything is for your betterment, your growth, your upliftment. So I
Mm.
believe, so for me, it's just how you are as you go through any issue is the issue. That is it. I mean, you can choose how you're going to go through anything. And that was like Viktor Frankl from when he was in a concentration camp, and it's Man's Search for Meaning.
I love that book.
That's an
Oh, yeah.
crazy, like if you just think about, something like that. I mean, and so in the moment between stimulus and response, there's a moment where you can choose how you're going to show up, and it's your choice, and no one can take that away from you. So you are completely in control of how you go through any situation, and that is the issue. So, there is no bad anything. It's just learning.
Yeah.
It's just the ability to see it as a lesson that needs to be learned. And not all lessons have a pleasant taste to them. You know,
Yeah.
most of the best ones are going to be pretty painful. They're going to
That's
think,
taking agency. That's taking agency right there. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, Jeff. Getting great minds on to tell us how to traverse this
yeah,
very muddy, this very muddy landscape.
yeah, I'll just keep it real. I'll try to keep it real. But yeah, for me, it's yeah. I love it. I love pontificating and thinking, and it's one of the cool things about being a painter or an artist, where you get to sit mano y mano doing that dance I mentioned earlier with creativity, but also sitting and being able to ruminate. And that's where you have to be very careful, because you can go down a lot of bad rabbit holes. You can go down a lot of conspiracy stuff. I mean, you can get
Yeah.
inside yourself and really mess things up if you. So I think, when you're going to, create, treat it as a reverence and as an honoring to, again, a higher source that you're going to be collaborating with, and go into it with that kind of reverence, so that you stay in a very positive place of growth internally, rather than ruminating and negative self-talk and all these things that could happen. Because art is the creative process can be very daunting and difficult, as we all know, and you can easily find yourself, oh, I'm so stupid, and I'm ridiculous, I'm an idiot, and I don't know, and, just really going into
Yeah.
real dark places, and really reaffirming things that you don't want to manifest, things that you don't want to bring to fruition. So I would just say, to everybody, just, really treat it with reverence and go in with a repetition of a mantra, or even, listening to inspirational music, inspirational books on tape, things. Always keep an inspirational air around where you're creating, so that you can be learning many different layers of learning while you're painting and drawing and sculpting and things, rather than just an act of just moving stuff, but very intelligent direction of energy.
What
Yeah.
sort
It's
of
great to hear where you are,
Go ahead.
Jeff. It's great to hear where you are in life at this point. Sorry, Rachel, it's this satellite again.
No,
I remember
it's
walking
fine.
down, I was walking down Tottenham Court Road with my agent 30 years ago, just kids. And the bus went past and it said www dot something or other. I says, how the hell do you ring that? It was the first sign that something seismic had changed. And you've traversed all of that and still come out the end a philosopher. And I think that's it's a great tribute to you and for everyone watching this, to say you can traverse anything as long as you've got the eternal optimism to go with it.
Yeah.
And that what you just said there about the negative thoughts is something that I'm glad I'm not burdened with it. But you can sort of feel it sometimes, little barbs, can't you? You see trolly comments and stuff. Not to read them. I try not to anyway. But that was funny, Jeff. You said you never read a single one.
I really haven't. I don't. I know some of my guys will say, "Oh yeah, there's this comment on that, whatever," but they'll say, "Oh, they're mostly really good." And I say, "Well, okay, I would imagine they would be, but I mean, I think they're good stuff that I'm putting out there. But I mean, there's going to be someone bent out of shape about everything. Someone will freak out about
Yeah.
me taking ayahuasca and say I'm some kind of hippie dippy, whatever, and that's fine. It's all good. You're probably exactly right. But I mean, the
Yeah.
main thing is yeah, it's just I don't know. I have zero time for that. So it's funny
Yeah.
because it's not that I'm immune to hurt feelings or anything, but it's just I just don't. I just for some reason there's part of me that knows that there's just no point in getting that caught up in the social media thing and really reading all that, because there is a bit of a disconnect with where we're heading with the whole social media thing, and especially now when AI is going to be writing a lot of stuff and creating stuff that you don't even know if it's the person saying it, or you don't even know, you have no idea where it's coming from now. So it's going to get even more difficult to discern what real is from what false is. And if you take everything
Yeah.
seriously, you're going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, that's funny, Jeff. This morning there, my wife was playing something for me, and I says, I don't want to hear that AI voice. It's so tiresome. And she lifted up the screen. It was a woman. It's actually a woman talking. And I thought she's got to learn how to speak a little bit better because that sounded like AI to me.
It's funny, yeah, because it's going to get really weird. I don't know. I mean, it's just in its infantile stages of development, which is so scary because it's already
That's so
good,
scary.
and it's
Is
already.
anything
So I
ever
think,
growing? Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think watch Blade Runner, watch Terminator. I don't know. I mean, it's like, I mean, people should just watch some sci-fi. I mean, that's all
Yeah.
you gotta do. But it's yeah, it seems very Blade Runner-ish to me. I mean, that's what it kind of feels like. But you know, um, it'll. Who knows? I mean, who knows? I think a lot, like everything, a lot of good will come out of it. A lot of bad will. A lot of people will weaponize the technology and do stupid stuff with it. Humans just need to evolve, and that's another reason, again, why I think it's so important that we all collectively try to up level our energy, however that can be done, whether it's through, again, plant medicines or things of that sort. But we don't have a lot of time to really up level before
Yeah.
it's going to be really difficult for us to move forward as a species. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement because it's going to have to happen, because if not, we won't make it, in my opinion. So but that being said, I don't want this to be all negative. And in this, I still am an
No.
incredible optimist. I mean, to me, it's more, let's take personal responsibility for our growth and upliftment. And who knows, maybe it's the thousandth monkey thing where, you know,
Yeah.
after a certain point of evolution, of humans, it'll just automatically kick in and everybody will evolve instantaneously. It could
Yeah.
happen that way, and it probably needs to, because I think we're too far behind to do it old fashioned, one person at a time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. I'm very optimistic about the species, but it's also very difficult not to be a little bit negative about
Yeah.
watching how things are going. But it's neat to see how much paradigm shift is happening energetically on the planet right now. It's very difficult to argue with that. So I,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do the dance, and keep it real. But who knows? I don't know what part I have to play in that. I've already tried in my own way to do it through the arts and to uplift that way. And I think, like I said, if everybody could just take their little sphere of influence and really, try to make it as best as possible, it would be a better world. And you don't have to change the whole world. Just change that handful of influence around you and watch it spider web out like I've done.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, it's amazing how much change you can do just with a decision that was made 30, 40 years ago when I sat down and said, I'm going to start an art school. I mean, everybody said I was crazy. Who do you think you are? I mean, what do you think? Whatever. I mean, if I listened to every naysayer that told me I couldn't do something, I would have done nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everyone out there, live your truth, be truthful to yourself, be honest with yourself, be authentic, whatever that looks like and means to you, and just freaking rip it, get out there and let it,
But
hell, have fun.
that's a great way to end the podcast there, Jeff. What an inspirational um,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
soliloquy. I was looking for the perfect word. You should always be looking for the perfect word, and then you never say anything. I got it out.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you having me on, and it's my pleasure. And anytime, and I love what you're doing, Patrick. And you're an inspiration as well, and a powerhouse. And I'm loving to see the direction you're going in, because we need more inspirational people like that out there doing their thing and sharing it with everybody. So all you guys, I mean, thank you for taking the time to do this, and it's
you.
my pleasure.
Yeah,
This
thank you,
is-
Jeff.
Yeah.
Go
thank
on,
you.
Rachel.
I was just saying thank you. Like, this has been awesome. I've been looking forward to this for a while because both of y'all have like you're very smart and very similar but different ways, and so it's very interesting hearing y'all kind of riff off ideas from completely different places.
Yeah.
And I've just been here trying to absorb as much as I can in my little brain.
Yeah, so many notes, so many things to come back to.
It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
You two have a bright future. Just have fun and be on. Just like I said, get out there and do your thing, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And yeah, try not to really look at the naysayers and the people that are going. There's always somebody that's, not willing to put themselves out there, that loves to tell everybody else that's putting themselves out there what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
So. I have no time for that stuff. So for me, I'm going to keep living my truth and trying to be as authentic as possible, and spread as much love and kindness, and also do it through some tough love as well. I mean, it takes everything, So Yeah. Good luck to all you. And, again, happy creating. And for all those out there that watch, thank you for taking the time. And I hope you got a little something here or there, a little pearl of wisdom maybe somewhere in there that you can take with you.
Loads. All right, Jeff, if you could hang around a little bit longer, because I want to talk to you about coming back. It'd be great, because you made the offer now, Jeff. It's written in stone. I have it here. Just a little, just to say goodbye properly, but we'll say goodbye to the people online that are watching now. Thanks for joining in, guys, having a look. Now we have also a goodbye. We have our traditional goodbye. And for me, coming from Ireland, it's Sláinte, great health. Rachel and Melanie from the Virginians, down south.
For me, I would say namaste.
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 Yes.
Namaste. You can't beat that. All right. Namaste it is. And we'll see you all in the next pod. Good luck, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.